कंप्लीट, GS1, GS2, GS3 कंप्लीट। अब आप कहेंगे तो आज हम GS पेपर 2 की चर्चा के लिए मिले हैं क्योंकि हम एक दिन के लेग से उसको सॉल्व कर रहे हैं हर एक पेपर को, ताकि अच्छी क्वालिटी का कंटेंट स्ट्रक्चर्ड तरीके से बन जाए। यहाँ चैट जीपीटी से कट पेस्ट माल कुछ नहीं है, टीचर्स ने खुद से जो इनपुट्स दिए हैं टाइप करके ऑडियो नोट से वगैरह, उसी के एक पूरी मटेरियल बनाई गई है। इस पूरे पावर पॉइंट को आप डाउनलोड भी कर सकते हैं, लिंक इज इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन। नाउ today's session, I welcome Dr. Sidharth Arora sir, Atish Mathur sir for the analysis of polity, governance, social justice, international relation, जो कि मेंस पेपर 2 के अंदर पूछे गए थे। इसके कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव आंसर, एनालिसिस, बच्चों ने क्या गलती की होगी, सबकी सर दोनों ही सर डिटेल में चर्चा करेंगे। सर आप दोनों का कार्यक्रम में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
थैंक यू सर।
शुरुआत में मैं 3-4 मिनट अपने ऑब्जर्वेशन, सर ये एको आ रहा है,
हाँ थोड़ा इको हो रहा है सर।
For the first 3-4 minutes, I will just explain a few observations on my side. ये जो ब्लॉक्स हैं उसके पॉलिटी, गवर्नेंस, आईआर। सबसे पहले पॉलिटी की बात करें, ग्राफ एनालिसिस तो ठीक है। मैं देखता हूँ ये यूपीएससी व्लॉगर्स और ये जो भी मतलब 100 मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक वगैरह चला रहे थे, यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड, वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, सेम सेक्स मैरिज, आई कुड नॉट फाइंड द क्वेश्चंस। तो कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव तैयारी करनी चाहिए, ऐसे शॉर्टकट मत लो। लक्ष्मीकांत वगैरह ऑफकोर्स दे हेल्प इन प्रीलिम्स, पर मेंस के अंदर वो अलग ही दिशा में चीज़ें करनी चाहिए। पुराने पेपर भी खास सॉल्व करो, जैसे 2017 में पूछा 101st अमेंडमेंट का महत्व, मतलब जीएसटी के बारे में। 2023 में वापस पूछा, आपको टोन अलग था, डिमांड अलग थी, पर टॉपिक तो वही था। सो सॉल्व द पीवाईक्यूज, थीम्स कीप गेटिंग रिपीटेड। और ये सिर्फ एक नहीं, इसके अलावा आप देखिए लोकल बॉडीज़ की प्रॉब्लम है, क्या पार्लियामेंट्री स्टैंडिंग कमिटीज़ अपना काम ठीक से कर रही हैं, वेलफेयर स्कीम्स में जनरल क्या प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं। ये सब भी ऐसे रिपीटेटिव थीम्स हैं जो पहले भी पूछे थे, इस बार भी पूछे गए। एक चीज़ होती है आपको कोई मामला एक लाइन में पता है, और दूसरा होता है कि यूपीएससी में 150-250 वर्ड्स में पूछा गया। फॉर एग्जांपल पिछले साल कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया ने गूगल पे कुछ एंटी ट्रस्ट या ये मोनोपोली के मामले में काफ़ी जुर्माना लगाया था। अब ये सब 1-2 लाइन में पता होगी, इधर करीब 150 वर्ड्स में लिखना था, इट रिक्वायर्स एफर्ट। तो उस हिसाब से पढ़ाई और न्यूज़पेपर कॉलम वगैरह देखने चाहिए। यूपीएससी ने इस बार एक प्रश्न पूछा जेंडर जस्टिस के रिलेटेड केस लॉज। और केस लॉज के नाम पे ज़्यादातर वो विशाखा गाइडलाइन एक लाइन पता है तो मैं एक्सपर्ट हूँ भाई। ये 250 वर्ड्स के अंदर पूछा है और मल्टीपल प्लूरल है, केस लॉज, एक से ज़्यादा ऐसे आपकी चीज़ों को जानकारी होनी चाहिए। पिछले साल महाराष्ट्र विधानसभा के अंदर स्पीकर अलग अलग कारणों से चर्चा में रहे, और उसके बारे में यूपीएससी ने आज पूछा है कि विधानसभा स्पीकर्स रोल। तो कॉलम्स पढ़ने की भी आदत रखिए, ये हमेशा सिर्फ करंट अफेयर्स का पीडीएफ या ये वीडियो या कुछ मैंने देख लिया बुलेट पॉइंट्स 4, इट विल नॉट हेल्प। दैट वाज पॉलिटी। गवर्नेंस के अंदर छोटे मोटे ऑब्जर्वेशन कुछ इस तरह से हैं। एक तो सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप और माइक्रो फाइनेंस से दूध की नदियां बहेंगी, जो एक रिपीटेटिव थीम था, 3-4 बार पूछ लिया था, हालांकि लगता है अब उनका थोड़ा प्यार कम हो गया है, इस बार नहीं पूछा। इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन के नाम पे, रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस के नाम पे ये जितना यूपीएससी व्लॉगर और एक था टाइगर जेम्स बॉन्ड चला था, सिंपल क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछा कि नाटो का जो एक्सपेंशन हो रहा है उससे भारत को क्या असर। तो इसलिए अगर आपको इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन की सही तैयारी करनी है तो ऐसे आप सीनियर मैच्योर एक्सपीरियंस टीचर से पढ़िए, जैसे आतिश सर, डॉक्टर सिद्धार्थ अरोड़ा सर, जो कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली चीज़ों को पढ़ाते हैं, ये नहीं पेज व्यू के हिसाब से ये सब जो चल रहा है। आखिरी मेरा ऑब्जर्वेशन ये है कि मेंस पेपर 2 आईआर में इन्होंने इस बार एक प्रश्न पूछा कि आईएमओ मतलब इंटरनेशनल मैरीटाइम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के क्या महत्व है, और वो पूछा उन्होंने 250 वर्ड्स में। तो मेरा तो खुद यूपीएससी एग्जामिनर से सर आप खुद लिख सकते 250 वर्ड्स बिना गूगल किए इस चीज़ को, 1 पेज 2 पेज 3 पेज और चौथे पेज पे आधा लिखना पड़े तब होते हैं 250 वर्ड्स। तो ऐसे कुछ तो क्वेश्चन पूछे जाते हैं। ऑफकोर्स नाउ व्हाट विल हैपन कि लोग नेट पे सर्च करके चैट जीपीटी के पूछ के बना दे जवाब, बट इन रियल लाइफ इट इज डिफिकल्ट। सो यस, पेपर इज डिफिकल्ट इन सम एरियाज। बाकी तो हमारे एक्सपर्ट एजुकेटर्स इसके बारे में और आपको बताएंगे। अनअकैडमी में यूपीएससी 2024-25 की तैयारी करने वाले विद्यार्थियों के लिए अलग अलग कोर्सेज चल रहे हैं। यू कैन ज्वाइन इट, लाइव क्लासेस बाय टॉप एजुकेटर्स, हाई क्वालिटी पावर पॉइंट्स, नोट्स फॉर रिवीजन, प्रीलिम और मेंस की टेस्ट सीरीज, मेंस टेस्ट सीरीज विथ इवैल्यूएशन, सीसेट से लेके बहुत कुछ आपको मिल सकता है। और उन सारी चीज़ों को ज्वाइन करने के लिए डिस्काउंट कोड एंड रजिस्ट्रेशन लिंक इज इन डिस्क्रिप्शन। नेक्स्ट, मेक श्योर 24 सितंबर सुबह 11 बजे को कैलेंडर में मार्क कर लें। उस दिन अनअकैडमी अल्ट्रा कॉम्बैट 50 क्वेश्चन इन 60 मिनट्स। अलग अलग रैंक लाने पर आपको 100 घंटे की लाइब्रेरी एक्सेस से लेके प्रीपेड रिचार्ज, लैपटॉप, स्मार्ट वॉच, बहुत कुछ एंड स्कॉलरशिप फॉर अनअकैडमी कोर्सेज मिल सकता है। ज़्यादा समय न लेते हुए अब मैं हमारे टॉप एजुकेटर्स डॉक्टर सिद्धार्थ सर, आतिश सर को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि अब इसकी हम पेपर की शुरुआत करें। आतिश, सिद्धार्थ सर।
थैंक यू सर फॉर दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी। सर मेरे हिसाब से पेपर, ये जो GS2 का पेपर आया था, ये बहुत ही सिंपल पेपर था, अल्ट्रा सिंपल पेपर था उसके लिए जिसको ये सब्जेक्ट आता नहीं है। ओके, जिसने सिर्फ हवाबाजी करनी है उसके लिए पेपर बहुत सिंपल है, राइट? क्योंकि जो भी इस सब्जेक्ट की गंभीरता समझेगा उसे पता चलेगा कि इस एग्जाम में बहुत सारे, राइट, ये बहुत सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स है जो कि लोगों को ऐसा लग रहा है, जो मैं भी सुन रहा हूँ, जो लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं, जो एक ही शॉर्ट में बोले, वो हर क्वेश्चन को एक शॉर्ट नोट के फॉर्म में बता रहे। जी जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस पे शॉर्ट नोट आ गया, जी नेटो पे शॉर्ट नोट आ गया। दैट इज नॉट हाउ इट इज। दिस एग्जाम हैड मेनी ट्विस्ट एंड टर्न्स, और कुछ ऐसे क्वेश्चन जरूर है जिन पर मैं गारंटी से बोल सकता हूँ, आई कैन बेट इट ऑन गारंटी, कि आप 250 वर्ड्स लिख ही नहीं सकते। देयर इज नथिंग दैट पीपल हैव, उतना वॉल्यूम है ही नहीं। और कुछ ऐसे क्वेश्चन जरूर है, स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन है, नो डाउट अबाउट इट, लेकिन कुछ ऐसे क्वेश्चन है जिन पे आप 1000 वर्ड्स लिख सकते हो, लेकिन उसको आपने 150 वर्ड्स में डालना है। सो आई थिंक दिस क्वेश्चन पेपर हैड इट्स ओन चैलेंज, एंड इसको इजी मान लेना बड़ा रिस्की हो सकता है, बिकॉज आई डोंट नो कि जिसने इजी समझा, सब वही वाली बात है, अज्ञानता परम आनंद होता है। ओके, पता ही नहीं होता तो आदमी कोबरा को भी, सांप सांप को भी
यस
खिलौना
सर।
समझता है। तो आई
सिद्धार्थ
थिंक,
सर, स्मॉल रिक्वेस्ट, असल में जो आपकी सेकंड टैब है उस विंडो को आप शेयर करें, तो हमें अभी स्क्रीन पर वो दिख नहीं रही है। जी सर,
आप
ग्रेट,
देख
यस सर, नाउ विजिबल। हाँ जी सर,
now visible. All right.
थैंक यू सर।
So I think this is the situation of this exam, and हम कोशिश तो करेंगे, and Atish sir is with us, so हम कोशिश करेंगे to give a real comprehensive picture of this exam instead of one size fits all kind of method. तो हम comprehensively discuss करना चाहेंगे for all my students, everyone who has studied. ओके, प्लीज पार्टिसिपेट। आई वुड लाइक टू सी कि तुम्हारे इस बारे में भी क्या व्यूज है। आतिश सर, आपके क्या व्यूज है सर? आतिश सर, कैन यू हियर अस?
आतिश सर, आपकी ऑडियो नहीं आ
Yes,
रही।
sir. My
यस,
opening
नाउ।
remarks are, sir, that this paper is tough. ये टफ इसलिए बिकॉज क्वेश्चन बहुत स्पेसिफिक पूछे हैं। ऑल्दो दो तीन चीजें बहुत अच्छी करी हैं यूपीएससी ने सर। जब से 2013 से पैटर्न चेंज हुआ है, 10 साल होने को आए, तो यूपीएससी भी अपनी 10वीं सालगिरह मना रहा है। तो द क्वेश्चंस आर बैक टू द 2013-14 पैटर्न, which are very specific, which are very you know precise and very concise. पहला तो सर ऑब्जर्वेशन ये है सर। दूसरा ऑब्जर्वेशन ये है सर, जो करंट अफेयर्स जिसके बैकबोन पे ये क्वेश्चंस बने हैं सर, ये पिछले 6-8 महीने के ही करंट अफेयर्स हैं। तो ये जो हम डरते हैं कि साल 2 साल, मतलब पैदा होते ही अखबार पढ़ना पड़ेगा तभी जीएस मेंस निकलेगा, सर ये ऐसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है सर। मतलब ये बहुत क्लियर है सर, कि मतलब मेरे हिसाब से 6-8 महीने की करंट अफेयर्स, और दूसरा सर 2013-14 के पैटर्न के हिसाब से सवाल, और तीसरा सर बहुत ही स्पेसिफिक चीजें पूछी हैं। मतलब ऐसा हवा, मतलब ओवर जनरल टाइप सवाल नहीं है सर। मतलब यही मेरे ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स हैं सर।
एब्सोल्युटली एग्री सर। और बहुत सारे जो हमारे डर थे या फिर जो फैलाए जाते हैं वो हट गए हैं, और वी आर बैक टू आवर सिलेबस। एंड अब ध्यान सब स्टूडेंट्स को ये देना है कि जो ये टाइम पास गिरी चल रही होती है वो बंद किया जाए और सब्जेक्ट को पढ़ा जाए, इंस्टेड ऑफ जो बहुत ज्यादातर यूपीएससी एस्पिरेंट्स को बेचारों को बहका दिया जाता है कि जी ये पढ़ो वो पढ़ो, 4 साल का पढ़ो, कौन कौन सी मोटी मोटी किताबें पढ़ो। इंस्टेड ऑफ दैट, लेट्स स्टार्ट फोकसिंग ऑन द सब्जेक्ट, और कोर पॉलिटी, कोर गवर्नेंस, कोर आईआर का टाइम आ गया। तो आई थिंक दिस इज द वे, एंड दिस इज अ वार्निंग साइन फॉर एवरीवन जो कि टाइम पास कर रहा था, यूपीएससी को क्रैक करना है, तो अब बहाने खत्म हो गए, लेट्स स्टार्ट स्टडिंग। तो आई थिंक आतिश सर, मृणाल सर, अगर आपकी परमिशन है तो शुड वी स्टार्ट डिस्कसिंग द क्वेश्चन सर?
यस सर।
ऑलराइट, सो पहला क्वेश्चन कर लेते हैं सर। क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 पूछा गया है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली गारंटेड जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज अ प्री रिक्विजिट ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, और जो टेल क्वेश्चन है वो है कमेंट। तो मेरे ख्याल से आतिश सर आपके भी चेहरे पे मुस्कुराहट आ गई होगी, हर पॉलिटी स्टूडेंट, खासकर जो लॉयर्स हैं, ओके, उनके चेहरे पे खासकर मुस्कुराहट आई होगी जब ये क्वेश्चन देखा होगा, है ना? सो ये जैसे ही क्वेश्चन आता है, ओके, एवरीवन हु इज इनटू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, उसको ये क्वेश्चन समझ में बहुत अच्छे से आ जाता है, एंड ही रियली लव्स टू डू दिस पार्ट। सो आई विल ऐड माय 2 सेंट्स, फिर आप ऑफ कोर्स आपके 2 सेंट्स, एंड देन आई थिंक वी विल हैव अ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव आंसर इफ यू परमिट मी टू डू दैट सर।
श्योर सर।
आई एम सॉरी, मेरे को आप लोग दिख नहीं रहे हो, तो आई होप मृणाल सर,
जी जी सर।
मैं ब्लाइंडली जा रहा हूँ कि मैं आपका एक्सप्रेशन देख नहीं पा रहा हूँ, तो अब मुझे समझ में आ रहा है कि
यस
सिर्फ
सर।
स्क्रीन पे ही देखकर ही जो भी हो रहा है। तो आई थिंक सर इसके प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस आए हुए हैं, ऐसे सिमिलर प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस पूछे गए। ओके, 2015 में क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है, फॉर अचीविंग द डिजायर्ड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स इट इज नेसेसरी टू इंश्योर दैट रेगुलेटरी इंस्टीट्यूशंस रिमेन इंडिपेंडेंट एंड ऑटोनोमस। तब ऑब्वियसली ये आया था, डिस्कस इन द लाइट ऑफ एक्सपीरियंसेस इन द रीसेंट पास्ट, जो कि अपने आप में एक थोड़ा सा खतरनाक हो जाता है क्वेश्चन। फिर उसके बाद हो जाता 2014, जो कि सब लोगों को बहुत ध्यान था, स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम इन्वेंटिंग द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्राइन द जुडिशरी हैज प्लेड अ हाईली प्रोएक्टिव रोल इन ensuring that India develops into a thriving democracy. In light of statement, evaluate the role played by the judicial activism in achieving ideals of democracy. ये 2014 का क्वेश्चन है। मुझे ऐसा लगता है क्योंकि इस टाइम द ऑनरेबल वाइस प्रेसिडेंट साहब ने, धनखड़ साहब ने, इस टाइम पर पार्लियामेंट में ये इशू उठा दिया और ये बात उठ गई कि बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्राइन, जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस पे सवाल आ गया। आई थिंक यूपीएससी कॉट द ड्रिफ्ट ऑफ इट एंड पुट दैट इन द एग्जाम। सो आई गेस कॉन्टेक्स्ट शायद वही था, एंड आई थिंक ये हम लोगों ने पीडीएफ में भी डाल दिया हुआ है। ये रिन्यू डिबेट है, ये स्टोरी बहुत पुरानी है, दैट व्हाट constitutes judicial independence, where is the line that we draw। तो मेरे ख्याल से इस क्वेश्चन को एक और बार रीड करना चाहिए। वर्ड यहां पे लिखा हुआ है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली गारंटेड जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज अ प्री रिक्विजिट ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी। नाउ द वर्ड दैट इज वेरी वेरी क्रूशियल इज दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट डेमोक्रेसी। व्हाई डेमोक्रेसी? माय क्वेश्चन टू हियर, माय पॉइंट ऑफ आर्गुमेंट ओवर हियर इज, why would we be talking about democracy? Because democracy is based on one big concept, and that is our doctrine of checks and balances, the separation of powers. We can go way back into Montesquieu, हम Montesquieu की discussions कर सकते हैं, separation of powers का concept समझ सकते हैं, and we can understand कि जब तक separation of powers नहीं होगा तब तक there will be arbitrary use of powers and so on and so forth। डेमोक्रेसी, डॉक्ट्राइन ऑफ चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस पे इस तरह से बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस पहले भी पूछे हुए। पार्लियामेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू द पीपल, गवर्नमेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू द पार्लियामेंट, एग्जीक्यूटिव इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू द लेजिस्लेचर एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ। लेकिन इस पूरे खेल में एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है, दैट डिस्पाइट सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, नरेश मिराजकर केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसे बड़ा क्लियरली मेंशन किया था, that the judiciary will play an extra role. Judiciary will also have the power to kind of separate itself from the state while taking judicial decisions. तो डेमोक्रेसी में ये कहानी बड़ी पुरानी है। मार्बरी वर्सेस मैडिसन केस 1803 में चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ यूएसए, चीफ जस्टिस मार्शल की खुद की स्टेटमेंट थी that it is the purview of the Supreme Court, it is the purview of the judiciary to check whether rest of the organs of the government, executive and legislative, are they performing their role well or not। ये स्टोरी वहां से जुडिशियल रिव्यू की स्टार्ट हुई, ये यहां से हम लोगों के नरेश मिराजकर केस में स्टार्ट हुई। कैन यू सेपरेट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर vis-a-vis द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस। तो ये आतिश सर का आपको वीडियो दिख रहा होगा, उसका स्क्रीनशॉट दिख रहा होगा, जहां आतिश सर ने मैग्ना कार्टा के मेंस लेक्चर में लिया हुआ है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली गारंटेड जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज द प्री रिक्विजिट ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी। ये क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन था। सिमिलरली ये मेरे क्लासेस में से, राइट, जो लोग मुझसे पढ़े हुए हैं उनको दिख ही रहा होगा, ये यूजुअली और सेम द चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया, चीफ जस्टिस रमन्ना के कॉन्सेप्ट में कि जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज मोस्ट वाइटल। तो बैकग्राउंड हमें समझ में आ गया, इंट्रोडक्शन हमको समझ में आ गया, और ये हम लोगों ने अपने अपने क्लासेस में बड़े ही अच्छी तरह से पढ़ाया हुआ। नेक्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ दिस क्वेश्चन इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस। अब बहुत सारे लोगों के सवाल खत्म हो जाएंगे जो लोकल बुक्स में से, लोकल पीडीएफ्स में से जमा करके पढ़ना स्टार्ट कर देते और उनको पता ही नहीं चलता हाउ टू डिफरेंशिएट व्हीट फ्रॉम chaff, गोल्ड क्या है, सोना क्या है और पीतल क्या है। वेलकम टू रियल पॉलिटी। When we teach you straight from the constitution. So when we teach you, हम लोगों ने आपको सारे constitutional provisions बताए हुए हैं। Article 50 separation of judiciary from the executive, 121 211 कि आप legislature में judiciary की discussion नहीं कर सकते, 124 the entire appointment procedure, similarly 217 the salary allowances and pensions etc will not be changed to the disadvantage. N number of constitutional provisions दिए हुए, all in all saying, supporting the word here is constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence. So once we start saying constitution हमने define कर दिया, OHCHR यानी कि यूनाइटेड नेशंस के कन्वेंशंस को हमने फॉलो कर लिया, हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में इनफैक्ट बाबा साहेब की खुद की स्टेटमेंट्स थी, डॉक्टर अंबेडकर की खुद की स्टेटमेंट्स थी, तुम्हें जहां से पढ़ना पढ़ सकते हो, उनकी खुद की स्टेटमेंट्स थी that without judicial independence democracy will not sustain in this country. So all and these questions are fine, और लास्ट में आप इसको समराइज कर सकते हो, रूल ऑफ लॉ, एविडाइसी का कॉन्सेप्ट, चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस, क्रेडिबिलिटी, फंडामेंटल राइट्स, और अगर तुम्हें मौका मिल भी गया तो why not put a few judgments also. Atish sir, in the lack of far more detail and before we go overboard, I think you can add your 2 cents.
सर विथ योर परमिशन एक छोटी बात मैं भी रखना चाहूँगा।
हाँ जी
मित्रों, पॉलिटी की तैयारी के लिए आतिश माथुर सर की सीरीज़ चलती है मैग्ना कार्टा, और सिद्धार्थ सर की भी पैरेलल एक सीरीज़ चलती है, और साथ ही साथ सिद्धार्थ सर पॉलिटिकल साइंस एज एन ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट भी पढ़ाते हैं। और यहाँ पर ये जो सारे वीडियोज़ वगैरह उसमें काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें फ्री सीरीज़ के रूप में भी कवर हुई हैं। यू कैन टेक बेनिफिट ऑफ दोज थिंग्स, वो आपको नीचे मिल जाएगा। सिद्धार्थ सर मैं आपकी अभी रजा चाहूँगा, क्योंकि मुझे अभी जाके मेंस पेपर 3 का भी वो आंसर की का काम और पावर पॉइंट सब बनाना है। तो आप दोनों से मैं रजा चाहता हूँ, एंड प्लीज़ कैरी ऑन। थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर सपोर्ट, लेट्स क्रैक इट। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू सर, आतिश सर भी। बाय।
Atish sir, we can continue the discussion, sir.
Yes.
If you want to add anything to the first question.
Sir,
और आप बता दें सर, क्योंकि मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है, तो आप मुझे बता देंगे, मैं स्लाइड अप एंड
हाँ
डाउन।
सर, अगर हम एक बार क्वेश्चन के टाइटल पे चले जाएं सर।
मैं चाहता हूँ सर। ओके, राइट सर।
सर यूपीएससी जब भी पॉलिटी में कोई क्वेश्चन पूछता है तो किसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट से पूछता है। कभी कभी डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चंस हो सकते हैं करंट अफेयर्स से, लेकिन हर क्वेश्चन के पीछे एक रीसेंट इवेंट का अंडरटोन होता है सर, और वही रीसेंट इवेंट के अंडरटोन का यही सवाल है सर, क्योंकि यूपीएससी भी बहुत फॉर्मली क्वेश्चन पूछती है सर। अब सर इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट, जैसा आपने बताया पिछले 6-8 महीने में लॉ मिनिस्टर और सीजीआई साहब के बीच में काफी आर्ग्यूमेंट्स हुए हैं ओवर अ बैटल ऑफ वर्ड्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस, और जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द वे जजेस आर अपॉइंटेड। तो इससे कॉन्टेक्स्ट बहुत क्लियर हो जाता है कि कोलिजियम इज अ लार्जर इशू ऑफ जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस। सर दूसरा सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात यह है सर, 2017 में सर यूपीएससी ने जब एनजैक का जजमेंट के बाद बहुत क्लियर सवाल पूछा था सर, critically examine the Supreme Court's judgment on NJAC 2014 with reference to the appointment of judges of the higher judiciary। तो कॉन्टेक्स्ट हमने अगर पीवाईक्यूज भी अगर एनालाइज ठीक से कर रखे होंगे, सो दिस इज अ वेरी क्लियर क्वेश्चन टू एक्सपेक्ट। अब इस क्वेश्चन की खास बात यह है सर कि ये एक सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक वाला सवाल है, मतलब ये है 10 नंबर का सवाल। तो हमारे पास समय नहीं है समा बांधने के लिए। इस क्वेश्चन में 2 वेरिएबल्स हैं, पहला डेमोक्रेसी और दूसरा डेमोक्रेसी अगर अच्छी हो तो उसके लिए ना सिर्फ जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस, बट वो जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली गारंटीड होनी चाहिए। तो इससे इसके सवाल को हमें बहुत क्लियर कट जवाब देना पड़ेगा सर। और अगर हम मेन बॉडी पे जाएं सर, तो जब हम इसका स्ट्रक्चर बना रहे थे तो मेरे हिसाब से इसमें बेसिकली 3 चीजें होती हैं सर। पहला, हम हम जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है इंट्रोडक्शन में, ये जो आपने रिन्यूड डिबेट की बात करी, हमने उसको मेंशन कर दिया सर। उसके बाद हमने जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस के इसेंशियल्स को एक्सप्लेन कर दिया कि जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस होता क्या है। Judicial independence is the independence in being able to pass judgments. It is the independence in being able to appoint and transfer judges of higher courts. It's also the independence in being able to function as a distinct and a separate branch of government. और उसके बाद हमने ये एक्सप्लेन कर दिया कि जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस से कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली हम डेमोक्रेसी को कैसे बेहतर फंक्शन कर सकते हैं। तो ये वाला पॉइंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है सर। सर आपकी परमिशन चाहूंगा, जब मैं भी मैग्ना कार्टा करा रहा था सर, जो भी स्लाइड दिखा रहे थे सर, इसमें मत किस्मत की बात थी सर कि मैंने इंट्रोडक्शन में सर तीसरी लाइन में ये एग्जैक्ट चीज लिखी थी सर, that in a written constitution independence of judiciary showcases a larger purpose sir। तो वो लक की बात है सर, कभी तुक्का बैठ जाता है, कभी नहीं बैठता है। तो ये क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली ये है कि जुडिशरी से आपको डेमोक्रेसी पे क्या फायदा हो रहा है, जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस से डेमोक्रेसी का क्या फायदा हो रहा है सर। ये वाला जो सवाल था सर, ये वाला पार्ट बच्चे मिस कर जाते हैं। और फिर इसके बाद सर क्लोज करते हैं हम इसको कि जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस इज रिगार्डेड एज बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर, और जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस की आड़ में ट्रांसपेरेंसी और अकाउंटेबिलिटी को हम सैक्रिफाइस नहीं कर सकते। तो एक बैलेंस्ड सा कंक्लूजन बन जाता सर। ओवर टू यू सर।
करेक्ट सर, आई थिंक एज आई सेड, आपने बात बिल्कुल सही बोली है सर। ये किस तरह से 100 वर्ड्स में 150 वर्ड्स में फीड इन करना है, ये एक्चुअली मेन आर्ट है, एंड आई एम श्योर कि इसको किया हो गया। बट बिल्कुल सही बात है, जो इंपॉर्टेंट कंटेंट्स है वो इसको क्लियरली मेंशन करना चाहिए। और आई थिंक दिस इज अ वेकअप अलार्म सर फॉर एवरीवन जो से ऊपर ऊपर से पढ़ता है। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, एक क्वेश्चन करते टाइम आपको 3 प्रोविजंस पता होने चाहिए। आपको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मालूम होना चाहिए, आपको गारंटेड जुडिशियल इंडिपेंडेंस मालूम होना चाहिए, और आपको डेमोक्रेसी मालूम होना चाहिए, ऑल्सो इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन द करंट अफेयर्स। So please wake up everyone, okay? You want to crack the toughest exam in the world, wake up, right? This is the time। और तुम्हें आता है, तुम मेहनत कर रहे हो, क्यों ना अपनी मेहनत सही डायरेक्शन में करना स्टार्ट कर दो। So let's go to the second question, sir। who are entitled to receive free legal aid? मेरे चेहरे पे मुस्कुराहट आ रही होगी, बिकॉज ये सब 2 साल पहले से सब लोग झुलसे हुए लोग हैं। सबको याद होगा, ये सब क्वेश्चन प्रीलिम्स में आ चुका है। एग्जैक्ट स्टेटमेंट उन्होंने उठाई है। आई थिंक लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी, लीगल एड, ये फेवरेट टॉपिक्स में से आ गया है यूपीएससी के। असेस द रोल ऑफ नेशनल लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी इन रेंडरिंग फ्री लीगल एड इन इंडिया। स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन, कंप्लीटली फैक्चुअल, या तो आता है या नहीं आता। इट्स एज सिंपल एज दैट। आप इसमें यू कैन नॉट बी बीटिंग अराउंड द बुश, यू हैव टू गो एंड टारगेट इफ यू नो द फैक्ट्स। So the facts of this game are very, very clear. The undisputed facts on this, National Legal Service Authority कहां से इमर्ज कर रहा है सर? ये इमर्ज कर रहा है फ्रॉम अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल आर्टिकल 39 कैपिटल ए, जो कि 42nd कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट 1986 से आया, और 1976 से आया, और उसी से 1987 में लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी एक्ट ऑफ 1987 आया। 1995 में नालसा एस्टैब्लिश हो गया। ये क्यों हुआ सर, उसको कनेक्ट कर लेंगे। आर्टिकल 21 में राइट टू स्पीडी ट्रायल की बात हो गई है। राइट टू फ्री लीगल एड इम्प्लिसिट है, डायरेक्टली नहीं बोला हुआ है, लेकिन स्टेट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र वर्सेस हॉस्कोट केस में इसको क्लियरली बोला हुआ है। और फिर हम आ जाएंगे नालसा के ऊपर। अब सर मैं यहां पर कुछ बोलना चाहूंगा। I'd say something to my students also। मैंने इन सब लोगों को एक वर्ड बोला था, और मैंने बोला था सर, अगर आपको याद है प्रीलिम्स में पिछली बार जब क्वेश्चन आया था 2021-22 में क्वेश्चन आया था, तो उन्होंने एग्जैक्टली पूछ लिया था किसको कितनी अमाउंट है। 3 लाख रुपए से कम सैलरी है, 2 लाख रुपए से कम सैलरी है, तो कितना आप लीगल सर्विस देंगे। मैंने इनको डिस्करेज किया था कि आप फिगर्स मत याद कीजिए। फॉर अ लॉन्ग पीरियड इन माय करियर सर, आई हैव वर्कड इन द लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटीज दिल्ली में ऑब्वियसली, लेकिन मुझे खुद को नहीं वो वैल्यू याद है। तो थैंकफुली आज यूपीएससी ने इसको उस तरह से स्पेसिफिकली ना पूछकर स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड पूछ लिया कि आप कैटेगरी बता दो, कि कहाँ पे नालसा के लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी में कहाँ आपको लीगल एड मिलेगा। यहाँ पर आपको सेक्शन 12 में आप एटसेट्रा भी लिख सकते हो, कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं है। तो आप बोल सकते हो नंबर 1 शेड्यूल कास्ट, शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स, वुमेन, चिल्ड्रन, इंडस्ट्रियल वर्कमैन, पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज, जो विक्टिम्स है मास डिजास्टर्स के एटसेट्रा, पर्सन इन कस्टडी। और सबसे क्रूशल बात, अब इंपॉर्टेंट बात है, डोंट वेस्ट योर टाइम इन रिमेंबरिंग फिगर्स। इंडिविजुअल्स विद एन एनुअल इनकम बिलो स्पेसिफाइड लिमिट लिख दोगे, दैट विल कट आइस विद द एग्जामिनर, तुम्हें कोई टेंशन नहीं होगी। तो अगर हम इस क्वेश्चन को देखेंगे तो यहाँ पे है हु आर एंटाइटल्ड टू रिसीव फ्री लीगल एड। क्वेश्चन को दो पार्ट्स में स्प्लिट कर दो, पहले वो सारी कैटेगरी बता दो जो सेक्शन 12 और नालसा में लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी एक्ट में लिखा है, और फिर लिख लो कि वहां पर कितना सक्सेसफुल है और कितना सक्सेसफुल नहीं है। सो उसमें आप प्रो बोनो, योग न्याय बंधु स्कीम एटसेट्रा। यानी कि नाउ दिस इज अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट of reading newspapers, just catching the drift of it instead of going either completely careless about current affairs or going way beyond it. Atish sir, your call sir.
थैंक यू सर। सर ऐसे क्वेश्चंस को देख के बच्चों के दिमाग में सबसे पहले ये डाउट आता है कि हम दुनिया भर की सारी स्टैट्यूटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस पढ़ने बैठेंगे तो हमारे जब तक खुद के बच्चे होंगे तब तक हमारे स्टैट्यूटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस खत्म हो पाएंगे।
yes
सर अप्रैल 2023 में हमारे देश की सबसे पहली नेशनल लोक अदालत कंडक्ट हुई थी सर, एंड 2 महीने बाद ही सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डायरेक्शन भी दिया था नालसा को कि आप सर्विसेज जो हैं एक्सटेंड करिए टू इंश्योर देयर आर मोर विमेन लिटिगेंट्स एंड दे गेट जस्टिस। तो सर कहीं ना कहीं ये कॉन्टेक्स्ट पिछले 6-8 महीने का ही बैठ रहा है, और आपने बिल्कुल सही बात कही सर कि प्रीलिम्स में ये सवाल लीगल एड पे आ चुका है सर, और मेंस के पीवाईक्यूज में भी लोक अदालत पूछ चुके हैं। तो ये वैसे भी एक फ्लैग टॉपिक है जो अगर हल्का सा भी न्यूज में आ जाए तो करना चाहिए, और काफी कुछ सालों से ये नहीं भी हुआ था। सर इस सवाल में मैं जनरली देखता हूँ कि बच्चे अगर गलती करते तो कहाँ करते हैं सर। अगर आपकी परमिशन हो तो सर आप एक बार प्लीज क्वेश्चन का दिखा दीजिए सर प्लीज।
सर विजिबल सर?
जी सर, थैंक यू सर। Sir, as you rightly said, the prelims and the UPSC is all about observing what is around you and preparing very seriously. आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है सर, और इसी पे मैं एक छोटी सी चीज और ऐड करूंगा सर विद योर परमिशन, कि सवाल आपसे 2 चीजें पूछ रहे हैं कि किसको लीगल एड मिलना चाहिए और इस प्रोसेस में नालसा का क्या रोल है, और ये 10 नंबर का सवाल है। अगेन जो प्रॉब्लम हमारे फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन में थी वो सेकंड क्वेश्चन में भी है कि आपको बहुत प्रिसाइज कंटेंट लिखना है, आप इधर उधर की बातें नहीं लिख सकते, नहीं तो यूपीएससी का एग्जामिनर नंबर काट लेगा। और जब हम फ्री लीगल एड की बात करें कि किसको मिलेगा, ये भी अगर जिस बच्चे को इस क्वेश्चन में किसी को 6 नंबर मिलेंगे और किसी को 7.5 नंबर, वो 6 और 7.5 नंबर का फर्क ये होगा सर, अगर कोई बच्चा ये बता दे कि लीगल एड में मिलेगा क्या, दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट, कि लीगल एड का मतलब सिर्फ लीगल रिप्रेजेंटेशन है या इसके अलावा भी कुछ मिलता है, व्हाट इज इट दैट लीगल एड मींस, क्योंकि बहुत लोग बिना लीगल एड को एक्सप्लेन करें, ऑल्दो इट इज सेल्फ एक्सप्लेनेटरी, बट फॉर 2 लाइन सर आधे 1 नंबर का फर्क होता है सर। एंड सर इसमें अगर हम नालसा की बात करें तो सर अभी वर्ल्ड जस्टिस रिपोर्ट आई थी सर, उसमें लीगल एड पे इंडिया का परफॉर्मेंस थोड़ा सा बेहतर हुआ है सर, तो हम वहां से
डेटा है सर, यहाँ पर हमने
यस सर
स्टूडेंट्स को ये लिखा है दक्ष इंडिया वाला। हाँ
यस सर, और जैसा आप भी जानते हैं सर अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट इज आल्सो ऑन द नेशनल जुडिशियल डेटा ग्रिड, सो दैट आल्सो बिकम्स अ फीड इन पॉइंट सर। थैंक यू सर, दैट्स ऑल आई हैव टू से ऑन दिस।
थैंक यू। और सर इसी बहाने में सारे और लर्नर्स को जो इस टाइम पर क्लास अटेंड कर रहे हैं, कृपा करके यस सर नो सर मत कीजिए, पार्टिसिपेट, add to what you would have written. This is not our exam only, we are together in this, friends, wake up, तुम डालो points, we would like to hear from you कि तुम क्या डालते हैं या तुमको कुछ realize हो रहा है, put yourself into the picture, सोचो कि तुम्हारी एग्जाम है and participate with complete, देखो तो सही तुम लोग where do you stand, suppose आज तुम्हारा मेंस का एग्जाम होता तो तुम क्या करते। so everyone participate बढ़ चढ़ के, okay, और आई एम श्योर कि तुम लोगों ने पढ़ा हुआ है टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट एंड यू वुड बी अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इन दिस एंटायर आर्ग्यूमेंट एंड ऑल। सर एक छोटा सा अनाउंसमेंट आपके परमिशन से, अनअकैडमी अल्ट्रा कॉम्बैट आ रहा है 24 सितंबर 2023 को, ओके 11 बजे ये होगा, और आपको बहुत सारे एक्साइटिंग अवार्ड्स मिल सकते हैं, लैपटॉप से लेकर फिटबिट वॉच, प्रीलिम्स टेस्ट सीरीज, 100 आवर्स लाइब्रेरी एक्सेस टू अनअकैडमी स्टोर होगा, जो कि अपने आप में ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एडवांटेज है। सो जो भी इसका लिंक है, सब्सक्रिप्शन लिंक है, जो भी टेस्ट लिंक है और टेलीग्राम चैनल है, एवरीथिंग इज अवेलेबल इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन। इसका पूरा फायदा उठाओ, Amazon गिफ्ट वाउचर से, फ्री प्रीपेड रिचार्ज ऑन योर मोबाइल है। So I think Unacademy is helping you out in whatever ways possible. Please take the advantage of this. Question number 3. Sir, I think standard question yet again. Repetition. The states in India seem reluctant to empower urban local bodies. ये कितने बार और कितने तरीकों से पूछा जा चुका है, ये क्वेश्चन आ रहा है। स्ट्रेंथ एंड सस्टेनेंस, ये 2020 का क्वेश्चन है। स्ट्रेंथ एंड sustenance of local institutions in India has shifted from their formative phases of functionaries and funds to the contemporary stage of functionality. तो आतिश सर एक हमारी छोटी सी डिस्कशन यहाँ पर ये हो जाएगी, तो आपको नहीं लग रहा 2020 का जो क्वेश्चन है वो एक्चुअली हमारे कीवर्ड्स मिल जाएंगे आज का आंसर देने को? आतिश, am I audible?
Yes sir, absolutely. I was just unmuting myself ताकि आपको डिस्टर्बेंस ना हो सर।
हाँ
सर
तो आपको नहीं सर कितनी अच्छी तरह से पास्ट क्वेश्चंस के साथ इंटीग्रेट किया है यूपीएससी ने। अगर हम फंक्शंस, फंक्शनरीज एंड फंड्स को इस क्वेश्चन का कीवर्ड बना के आंसर दे दे, सो व्हाट सर ऊपर देखिए एग्जैक्टली सेम है, ऊपर भी लिखा है फंक्शनली एंड फाइनेंशियली, नीचे फंड्स, फंक्शनरीज एंड फंड्स पर क्वेश्चन पूछा है। आई मीन अनबिलीवेबल सर।
सर 2020 का जो क्वेश्चन आप दिखा रहे हैं सर, दिस क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली सबस्यूम्स द 2023 क्वेश्चन। अगर किसी ने 2020 का क्वेश्चन प्रैक्टिस किया होता तो उसमें अर्बन और लोकल गवर्नमेंट सेपरेटली एड्रेस किया होता सर। एंड ऑल्सो सर, एज यू राइटली सेड, ये क्वेश्चन भी थोड़ा करंट अफेयर्स में कॉन्टेक्चुअल भी है सर। जनवरी 2023 में सर आरबीआई की एक फाइनेंसेस ऑफ म्युनिसिपैलिटीज की रिपोर्ट आई थी। अब बच्चों को वो रिपोर्ट पढ़ना तो ऑब्वियसली जरूरी नहीं है सर, लेकिन जनवरी 2023 में भी एक अपनी जो मेन न्यूज़पेपर है सर हिंदू का, उसमें द स्टेट ऑफ म्युनिसिपल, मतलब द स्टेट ऑफ फाइनेंसेस पे उस पे एडिटोरियल था उस रिपोर्ट पे। तो आई थिंक वो अभी भी 6-8 महीने के करंट अफेयर्स वाला जो हम टाइमलाइन लेके चल रहे हैं साल भर तक का, वो वैलिड बैठ रहा है सर। एंड लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट में सर क्वेश्चंस हमेशा से बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड ही रहे हैं सर। सर ओवर टू यू सर।
बिल्कुल सर। तो मेरे हिसाब से सर एक हमारे जो एक लर्नर ने भी ये पॉइंट रेज किया, मुझे लगता है तो इसमें चैलेंज है ना सर, वो टाइम लिमिट है। ओके, द टाइम लिमिट में आपको ये आंसर लिखना है, सो यू हैव टू, इसमें बहुत कुछ डाला जा सकता है। सो मेरे ख्याल से जो इस टाइम पे फंड्स, फंक्शनरीज एंड फंक्शंस का अगर मैं कॉन्सेप्ट को निकाल के स्टार्ट करता चल रहा हूँ, लेट मी पिक अप द क्वेश्चन राइट फ्रॉम 2020। सो मैं सबसे पहले फंक्शंस की बात करता हूं। तो जब 74th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट आया, सब लोग को मालूम होगा, सब लोग गिव मी अ थम्स अप, एवरीवन शुड अंडरस्टैंड, 74th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट आया तो म्यूनिसिपैलिटीज नाम का पार्ट 9A बना। म्यूनिसिपैलिटीज एक अर्बन लोकल गवर्नमेंट के फॉर्म में पार्टिसिपेट हुआ, लेकिन यहाँ पर एक गेम था जिस गेम को ज्यादातर लोग उस टाइम पे समझ नहीं पाए। वो ये था दैट there will be 18 subject matters जो 12th शेड्यूल से स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से लोकल गवर्नमेंट में चले जाएगा, लेकिन it was not mandatory for the states to give these powers to the urban governments। ये इस क्वेश्चन का सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट प्रैक्टिकल रीजन है, जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट प्रैक्टिकल रीजन है कि कोई मैंडेटरी प्रोविजन नहीं था। हेंस क्या सारे स्टेट्स देंगे ये पावर्स, इज द एंटायर क्वेश्चन मार्क। मेरे ख्याल से द एग्जामिनर इज नाउ फोकसिंग ऑन डू यू नो। ये वो था ना सर, जैसे लिखा होता टू डू यू नो, डू यू रियलाइज कि एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सिचुएशन आ चुकी है और स्टेट्स क्या ये दे देंगे? इट इज यूजुअली नॉट पॉसिबल, चाहे वो पॉलिटिकल कंसिडरेशन से हो, चाहे वो अथॉरिटी कम हो जाए, चाहे फॉर दैट मैटर ब्यूरोक्रेटाइजेशन हो जाए। तो द एंटायर थिंग इज, क्या वो सारी पावर्स डिवॉल्व हुई? दिस इज द अंडरलाइन स्ट्रेटा ऑफ द क्वेश्चन। कि मैंने आर्टिकल 40 देखा जब डीपीएसपी में लिखा हुआ था दैट द it was clearly mentioned that the state shall take steps to organize local governments and give them such powers that will enable them to function as units of self government। मैं इसी तरह से कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बेसिस पर सब स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ाता हूं। तो रीजन क्या होता है? ताकि तुमको इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस में अंडरलाइंग डायनामिज्म याद आ जाए, और जिनको समझ में आ गया वो इस क्वेश्चन को बहुत अच्छी तरह से आंसर दे देते हैं, और जिनको नहीं समझ में आ जाता वो इसी बात पे क्रिप करने लगते हैं, यू नो, अरे हमको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पढ़वाया जा रहा है। बच्चा, एग्जाम स्टैटिक हो चुकी है, एग्जाम डेविल लाइज इन द डिटेल हो चुकी है, पढ़ना स्टार्ट करो। सो आतिश सर, आपके साथ हम ये बताएंगे सर आप कुछ एग्जांपल्स देना चाहेंगे कि कैसे सर स्टेट्स are not giving the powers and how are we suffering because of that, sir?
थैंक यू सर। सर अगर थोड़ा सा नीचे स्क्रॉल करेंगे सर, आई हैव बीन लकी विद दिस क्वेश्चन आल्सो सर।
यस सर।
सर ये क्वेश्चन एज इट इज सर वर्बैटम जो भी मैंने मेंस का क्रैश कोर्स कराया था स्पेसिफिकली ऑन अर्बन लोकल गवर्नमेंट मैंने ये कवर करा था सर। और इस कोर्स में सर इस पर्टिकुलर लेक्चर में एग्जैक्टली इसी फॉर्मेट में करा था सर। आई थिंक आपने भी अपने क्लास में सर कवर कराया था सर।
यस सर। ये एक्चुअली वही ये मेरा
ये आई थिंक हाँ ये जुलाई 23 वाला आर्टिकल है सर। बिल्कुल
हाँ जी ये मैंने वही डाला था, इसलिए मैं करंट अफेयर्स के साथ ही वो 3-4 वर्ड्स ही थे, स्टेट इंटरफेरेंस, नो इंडिपेंडेंट फाइनेंसेस और ब्यूरोक्रेटिक इंटरफेरेंस। तो ये एग्जैक्टली वही वर्ड्स ही थे सर।
तो सर ये जो कीवर्ड था सर, अगर थोड़ा सा एक मिनट ऊपर जाएंगे सर, आई एम सॉरी
यहाँ पर
सर। हाँ जी सर, मैंने सर हाँ सर इसी में मैंने एग्जैक्टली इसी फॉर्मेट में सर फंड्स और फंक्शनरीज के हिसाब से पढ़ाया था सर। एंड बेसिकली द कॉन्टेक्स्ट हैज बीन कि 2023 में जो हमारे म्यूनिसिपैलिटीज हैं उनके पास जितना पैसा है वो पिछले 8-10 सालों में सबसे कम पैसा बचा है सर। अब इसमें दो चीजें बैठती हैं सर। एक, पहला कि हम अपने जो अर्बन लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट है उनको और पावर कैसे दें लेजिस्लेटिवली थ्रू द डेवोल्यूशन ऑफ द 12th शेड्यूल, और दूसरा हम उनको फाइनेंशियली सस्टेनेबल कैसे बनाएं। और ये दोनों चीजें अलग भी हैं और रिलेटेड भी हैं। अगर हम उनको ये लेजिस्लेटिव पावर दे दें कि ये और लोकल टैक्सेस ले सकें तो ये अपने आप भी फाइनेंशियली थोड़े और सस्टेनेबल हो सकते हैं सर। तो इस हिसाब से इसको कवर करना था सर मेरे हिसाब से।
यस सर। ये जैसे सर हमने अपने स्टूडेंट्स के पीडीएफ के लिए दिया है सर, और दोज ऑफ यू जो सीरियसली पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, जो टाइम पास कर रहे हैं, वो ऐसे भी नहीं पढ़ेंगे, लेकिन जो सीरियसली कर रहे हैं तुम्हें ये सारी जजमेंट्स मालूम होनी चाहिए। चेन्नीगप्पा वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ कर्नाटका, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट जजमेंट आई थी। फाइनेंशियल कंस्ट्रेंट जिस तरह से आतिश सर ने भी बताया, रियल, क्योंकि ये 3 Fs वाला जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो आपको फंड्स के बेसिस पे करना है। प्लीज स्टार्ट राइटिंग, और अगर नहीं भी होगा तो ये इस पीडीएफ को आप डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं। और सर एक कमाल की बात है, हमने सेकेंड एआरसी और इसके बारे में ये सारे के सारे हम लोगों ने अनअकैडमी के नोट्स में भी डाले हुए थे। सो आई थिंक दिस वाज अ ग्रेट एडवांटेज, अब पता चल गया है। सो ये सर देखिए पूरा आर्टिकुलेट मैगजीन में भी आया हुआ है, नोट्स 2.0 में। नोट्स 2.0 में तो सर कंप्लीटली क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 इसी फॉर्मेट में आया हुआ है। सो आई गेस अगर कोई सीरियसली पढ़ाई कर रहा है तो आई थिंक बड़े आराम से ये क्वेश्चन हो जाएगा।
Sir, if I may, sir, just add one small part, sir.
Sir.
The challenge in this question would have been for students to explain why has there been a reluctance of the state governments.
Yes, sir.
To explain specifically why the state governments are not devolving and not funding.
Yes,
the
sir.
symptom or disease or cure तीनों चीजें बतानी पड़ेंगी sir. Over to you, sir. We can.
Yes, sir. So ये क्वेश्चन मैं फिर ये बात बोल रहा हूँ सर, मैं अब अगर मैं स्टूडेंट होता और मैं ये एग्जाम दे रहा होता, मुझे चैलेंज ज्यादातर ये हो जाता कि मैं 8-9-10 मिनट में ही लिख पाऊंगा कि नहीं लिख पाऊंगा, बिकॉज दिस इज अ वाइड क्वेश्चन और इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें आ सकती थी। लेट्स गो टू क्वेश्चन नंबर 4। कंपेयर एंड कॉन्ट्रास्ट द ब्रिटिश एंड इंडियन अप्रोचेस टू पार्लियामेंट्री सॉवरेनिटी। वाला क्वेश्चन सर, I mean, who has not discussed this? Who has not taught this? I think congratulations to UPSC for having asked such a question. Okay, and I think a very important question. तो इससे previous year questions कई बार आए हुए हैं, analyze जो compare with the constitution etc. पे क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है, या फिर ये बता मैं सर पर से कभी भी कंपैरिजन ऑफ इंडियाज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विद द वर्ल्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक अलग से चैप्टर पढ़ाता ही नहीं हूँ. आई डोंट नो, आई माइट बी डिफरेंशिएटिंग. मैं
Same here, sir. Same here. Same here.
सेम है ना सर, दैट इज गुड, बिकॉज मैं उस फ्लो में ही पढ़ाने लग जाता हूँ कि यार पार्लियामेंट पढ़ रहे तो उसके साथ कंपेयर कर लेते हैं. सो दिस इज एग्जैक्टली द स्लाइड्स, एंड एग्जैक्टली मैंने फोटोग्राफ के साथ उन दोनों चीजों को दिखा दिया था. एंड आई थिंक इफ यू परमिट मी, I'll just read out from the slide and give my 2 cents, and then of course you can add to this part.
Certainly, sir.
सो मैंने ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट और इंडियन पार्लियामेंट को कंपेयर किया, एंड आई थिंक मैं अगर आंसर लिख रहा होता तो मैं इन्हीं इनपुट्स को पकड़ के रहता. सबसे पहले द वर्ड इज सॉवरेनिटी. व्हेन आई से सॉवरेनिटी वी हैव टू एक्सप्लेन इन टर्म्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री सॉवरेनिटी. हमारा थोड़ा बहुत कॉन्सेप्ट एविडाइसी का यहाँ पर दोबारा आ जाता है. सो एविडाइसी इज द कॉन्सेप्ट जहां पे रूल ऑफ लॉ, यू नो, द सॉवरेनिटी, द इक्वालिटी बिफोर लॉ एंड सो ऑन सो कॉन्सेप्ट है. Now, ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट्री मॉडल ने एक बड़ा ही इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट लिया. उन्होंने लिया कि पार्लियामेंट इज सुप्रीम. देयर शैल बी नो क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड टू पार्लियामेंट इन द टर्म्स ऑफ देयर लेजिस्लेटिव कैपेसिटी. ये बड़ा क्रूशियल वर्ड था, एंड दैट इज अ की वर्ड हियर. लेजिस्लेटिव कैपेसिटी में कोई सवाल नहीं पूछेगा. अगर मैं इसी से कुछ डिराइव करूं तो मैं ये बात बोल सकता हूं, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंग्लैंड विल हैव नो फॉर्मल पावर्स ऑफ जुडिशियल रिव्यू. आई वॉन्ट, अगर मैं जैसे एक बार हमारे सर आपने भी बोला 6 मार्क और 7.5 मार्क में ये फर्क हो जाएगा मेरे हिसाब से कि एक छोटा सा फाइन पॉइंट उसमें डाला जा सकता है. व्हेन आई से देयर इज नो फॉर्मल जुडिशियल रिव्यू अवेलेबल टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंग्लैंड, इट डज नॉट मीन दैट yes, it does not have the power to strike down laws made by the British Parliament, but interpretation of law is allowed. Vis-a-vis or as compared to India, constitution is supreme. Parliament is the supreme legislative body, but does not mean that the legislation cannot be challenged. तो सर देखा जाए तो ये कमाल हो रहा है ना सर. If you notice, the first question is somehow related to this part, in the sense कि फिर वो judicial review, judicial independence का question है. So the theme is not going away. Supreme Court of India does have formal judicial review. All it is emanating from Article 13. There have been a plethora of judgments with relationship to that, be it Keshavananda Bharati, be it Golaknath, Minerva Mills case, and so on and so forth. Fundamental rights become the break, or used to become the break, but now it is basic structure doctrine. So our parliamentary sovereignty is very different from the British ones. The idea is यहाँ पर the main concept, so अगर हम इसको देखेंगे तो historical origin हमने डाला हुआ है. Unwritten constitution है इंग्लैंड का. We have a written constitution. They have an absolute sovereignty. We don't have absolute, we have limited sovereignty. Very major difference. They don't have judicial review, formal judicial review. We have judicial review. So, इस पे हम बहुत देर बोला जा सकता है, but I, you know, in the paucity of time, sir, we'll stop here. Sir.
कंपैरेटिव कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस के सवाल सर स्पेसिफिकली पिछले 5 साल से आ रहे हैं और बिना मतलब के कभी भी नहीं आए हैं सर.
बिल्कुल.
2019 में सर जब उन्होंने इंडिया और फ्रांस का सेक्युलरिज्म का अप्रोच पूछा था, तब फ्रांस में वो नोत्रदाम कैथीड्रल में वायलेंस हुआ था. जो हिजाब का जो लॉ था उसमें उन्होंने अमेंडमेंट लाया था दैट इवन इफ यू आर गोइंग ऑन अ स्कूल ट्रिप यू हैव टू वेयर अ हिजाब. सिमिलरली सर जब 2020 में इंडिया और यूके का जुडिशरी का सवाल आया था सर, यू वुड रिमेंबर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ द यूके व्हिच most people don't know is a very recent institution. It's not an old institution at all. Sir, unhone sir they had actually reversed a prorogation order to continue the Brexit debate. तो इसलिए ये सवाल पूछा था. Sir, 2021 में because of the Black Lives Matter movement in the US, they had asked a question on the notions of equality between India and the US. And last year, because we had new presidents both in France and in India, they had asked us to compare the procedures through which India and France are elected. तो इसका बहुत सिंपल मतलब ये है कि दुनिया भर के सारे देशों के पॉलिटिकल डेवलपमेंट्स हमें ट्रैक करने की जरूरत नहीं है सर. नहीं, हमें इंडिया, यूएस और फ्रांस जो पिछले 5 साल में वो रोटेट करके पूछ रहे हैं, लार्जली बिकॉज यूके इज व्हाट वी इनहेरिटेड फ्रॉम, US is what we are trying to sort of progress from, and the basic difference between India and France, as you would know, sir, is that it is a common law versus a continental law legal system difference. So वो comparison में इतना बहुत हो जाता है, sir. And as far as this question is concerned, sir, we've had a new UK Prime Minister who has some sort of ties to India, sir. तो sovereignty का कहीं ना कहीं सवाल बनता ही है, and there have been larger questions of judicial reform in the UK, and I think, sir, you've covered most parts of it. पार्लियामेंट्री सोवेरेनिटी का को डिफाइन करना मुश्किल होता है बच्चों को, सर, वो कई बार लिख नहीं पाते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट्री सुप्रीमेसी और पार्लियामेंट्री सोवेरेनिटी का एक बहुत फाइन लिंकेज है, सर, बट आई थिंक सर यू हैव कवर्ड मोस्ट पार्ट ऑफ इट रादर वेल, सर.
थैंक यू सर. सर स्टूडेंट्स भी बहुत अच्छी तरह से रिस्पांस दे रहे हैं. कमेंट सेक्शन इज फुल ऑफ वेरी नाइस आंसर्स. बहुत सब लोगों ने आंसर भी देना स्टार्ट कर दिया. ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट्री सुप्रीमेसी, सुयश इज आंसरिंग. Rudra Pratap saying in India is everything is under judicial review. Kiran is answering Article 30 provides for judicial review. Very smartly answering हो रहा है, sir. So 2024, sir, Unacademy has a good strength of students who are going to take the exam. We're very hopeful. और ये भी इम्पोर्टेंट है कि नोट्स 2.0 में अनअकैडमी के नोट्स में ये सब कुछ डाला गया है. सो आपको ये भी पढ़ने का मौका मिलेगा. Question number 5. Discuss the role of presiding officers of state legislatures in maintaining order and impartiality in conducting legislative work and in facilitating best democratic practices. तो आतिश सर, मैं आपसे ये बात पूछूंगा, आपको नहीं लग रहा कि ये क्वेश्चन फिर से उसी स्ट्रेंथ पे आ रहा है जो 2022 में जिस तरह से पूछा गया, या फिर 2020 में once a speaker always a speaker, ये प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर का रोल is coming again and again towards unbiased parliamentary procedures and so on and so forth. What do you say, sir, about this?
Sir, बस context बदला है, sir. The question is the same. Yes. The only reason that they've specifically asked the presiding officers of state legislatures is because of the last 6 to 8 months, जब वो महाराष्ट्र और कर्नाटका में political crisis रही हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो हम लोग सब सोचते हैं कि एंटी डिफेक्शन पूछेंगे महाराष्ट्र को लेके, बट उन्होंने कहा कि एंटी डिफेक्शन तो छोड़ो, आपने महाराष्ट्र असेंबली का मतलब असेंबली नहीं छोड़ी, मतलब ये हो गया था. तो एंड इसका बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है, सर, ऐसे सवालों में बच्चों को घबराना नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज सर the functions of the presiding officers of the central legislatures, which is the union parliament, is exactly the same as the presiding officers of the state legislatures. तो वो अगर स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में पूछ रहे हैं तो बच्चे को यहाँ पैनिक नहीं होना चाहिए, अरे मैं तो पढ़ के ही नहीं गया था स्पीकर और लेजिस्लेटिव हाउस, इसमें मैं क्या लिख दूंगा. बस कॉन्टेक्स्ट अलग है, बाकी सब कुछ सेम है, सर. देयर इज नो डिफरेंस एट ऑल.
बिल्कुल. And I think जो जिन लोगों ने ये एग्जाम ये दिया होगा, तो मेरे ख्याल से this क्वेश्चन एक ब्रीदर का काम कर गया होगा, because I think everyone in their right frame of mind आंसर दे सकता है. Rules of procedure, conduct of business of the houses, be it in state or in parliament, are absolutely parallel to one another. दोनों जगह पे एक्सपेक्टेशन ये होती है कि प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर इम्पार्शियल रहेगा, डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट कि हमारे पास वंस अ स्पीकर ऑलवेज अ स्पीकर कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है. तो हमारे पास फिर भी ये एक्सपेक्टेड है, एक कन्वेंशन है, ये एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि जो स्पीकर होंगे, जो प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर होंगे, वो या फिर फॉर दैट मैटर अगर वो लोकसभा में पूछना होता चाहे विधानसभा में पूछना होता, he will give an equal opportunity to both the treasury benches as well as to the opposition, and इससे equal opportunity होगा. Also when you introduce a motion, when you introduce a bill, all the bills are in the line of rules of procedure and conduct of business, be it of any other house. Also very very important कि कुछ ना कुछ disputes आते चले जाते हैं, चाहे वो disputes आ जाए with relationship to who is in contempt of the house or who is not following or point of order motions, for that matter the entire जो आजकल बड़ा famous होने लग गया privilege motions. Another important part is कि the parliament stands on the feet of what are called as committees. ये line बड़ा important है, मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ the functioning process is based upon committees, and committees की ज्यादातर appointments, ज्यादातर if not all, is in the hands of the presiding officer. तो ये आपको यहां तक करना है, लेकिन एज सर हैज करेक्टली मेंशन्ड, हमने महाराष्ट्र में इशू होते हुए देखा है, वी हैव बीन स्पोकन अबाउट दिस इन नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स, थोड़ा बहुत न्यूज से अवेयरनेस, लेकिन विदाउट नेमिंग एनीवन, आई रिपीट दिस अगेन, डोंट नेम एनीवन, give a general sense of the things that there are people who are raising questions of what is happening in defection, what is the idea of any motion being moved, कोई privilege motion है, disciplinary actions है, अभी बहुत सारे लोगों को डिस्क्वालीफाई कर दिया जाता है, सस्पेंड कर दिया जाता है, इज इट एक्सेप्टेबल और नॉट? ये क्वेश्चन इसीलिए हो रहा है बिकॉज कहीं ना कहीं हवा ये बनते जा रही है कि शुड वी और शुड वी नॉट अडॉप्ट the British method of once a speaker, always a speaker, and that is being spoken in editorials again and again. I guess that is one of the reasons ये question है. Atish sir, anything you want to add, sir?
Sir, just as with your permission, the closing remark on this. In
Yes, sir.
January 2023, we had the All India Presiding Officers Conference in Jaipur, where the Vice President of India, who's also the de facto, the ex officio chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, had actually issued a warning to all presiding officers कि get your houses in order. And उस पे बहुत editorials भी आए थे, so the context was effectively set. Sir, there are two challenges in this question, which are implicit challenges, where we'll have to look at some PRS data जो मतलब means के पहले बस एक दो हफ्ते पहले देखना होता है, and PRS की वो report भी आई थी, उसमें उन्होंने कहा भी था कि the state presiding officers have not been particularly successful in trying to impart impartiality and best practices. And the second challenge would be which is what are the local factors that make it even more difficult for presiding officers to do what could have been done at the parliamentary level. But ये एडिटोरियल में बड़े आराम से मिल जाता सर. आई 4-5 महीने पहले का काम है सर, इसमें ज्यादा मेहनत है नहीं.
बिल्कुल. एंड ऐसे मौके पे आई वुड एक्चुअली पॉइंट आउट सुयश द्विवेदी जो हमारे साथ कमेंट सेक्शन में डाले, एज वेल एज रुद्र प्रताप सिंह, दे आर डूइंग इट वेरी नाइसली डन. ओके, कि इन लोगों ने सर एक पॉइंट और रेज किया, आई होप एवरीवन रिकॉल्स आधार जजमेंट. So at that time also the introduction of a bill as a particular as a money bill or not was also being asked or discussed. So I think Suyash, very well done, bacha. Okay, you are thinking on your feet and you are thinking very fast. Very good. And similarly, Rudra Pratap standing committees, I think everyone should participate. Don't sit. Everyone participate and be a part of it. So question number 7. Discuss the role of Competition Commission of India in containing the abuse of dominant position by multinational corporations in India. So this is a question close to my heart. If your permission, sir, can I answer my 2 cents into this, sir?
Sir, please, sir, all yours.
Thank you, sir. So of course, because I'm प्रोफेशनली इन्वॉल्व इन आर्ग्यूइंग मैटर्स इन कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया. मेरे को जैसे ये क्वेश्चन आया तो मैं बड़ा खुश हो गया. मैं अपनी बात बोल देता ताकि अच्छा लगे. So I was involved in this part. So the question here is dominant position. So when I say dominant position, this is something that everybody has to know this. If you don't know this part, then you are in trouble because we have to explain dominant position in and out. तो सर सबसे पहले तो मैं यहाँ पर सब लोगों को वार्निंग देना चाहता हूँ कि बहुत हो गया आप लोगों को ये बात सोचते हुए कि वो कुछ पूछेंगे और कुछ नहीं पूछेंगे. अब सर सब कुछ पूछने लग गए. दे स्टार्टेड आस्किंग एवरीथिंग. और कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया हो चाहे कोई भी क्वेश्चन होगा, दे विल आस्क यू दिस क्वेश्चन इन एंड आउट. सो प्लीज इस बात को अब बेट मानना बंद कर दो. सो सर मेरे ख्याल से हमें कंपटीशन एक्ट की बात करनी पड़ेगी. एंड व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ कंपटीशन एक्ट, सेक्शन 19 जो है वो बता रहा है द फैक्टर्स जिससे कोई भी कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया किसी चीज को डोमिनेंट पोजीशन बोलने लग जाती है. सर क्वेश्चन बड़ा स्पेसिफिक था. डोमिनेंट पोजीशन इंग्लिश वर्ड नहीं है. डोमिनेंट पोजीशन लीगल टेक्निकल वर्ड है. दिस हैज टू बी रियली अंडरस्टूड इन दिस पार्ट कि ये डोमिनेंट पोजीशन एक लीगल वर्ड है और अगर ये मिस हो गया, गेम इज ओवर. आप कुछ और लिखकर चले जाओगे, आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि डोमिनेंट पोजीशन अंग्रेजी का शब्द है. सॉरी माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, ये नहीं है. और ये रीसेंट जजमेंट में किस बेसिस पे होता है? कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का उस टाइम पर मार्केट शेयर कितना है, नंबर 1 इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट. दूसरा, उस एंटरप्राइज के पॉकेट्स कितनी है. उसका वो कितना डेप्थ में उसके पास पैसा है, उसके पास इकोनॉमिक पावर क्या है, उसी साथ कि उसके जो कॉम्पिटिटर्स है वो कितने एक्टिव है, उनके पास कितनी पावर है, उनके पास कितना मनी है, all of that is dependent upon or rather will be utilized to provide for dominant position. ऑल्सो ये चीज कोर्ट देखता है, कंपटीशन कमीशन देखता है कि कंज्यूमर उस चीज पर कितना डिपेंडेंट हो जाता है. सो आई रिसेंटली आर्ग्यूड मैटर इन सम मैटर्स, मैं बिना किसी नाम लिए बोल रहा हूँ कि कुछ ऐसे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक आइटम्स है जो सिर्फ कुछ कंपनीज ही प्रोवाइड करती है, that also may provide a dominant position to any corporation, that could also be included as the multinational corporation or MNCs. ऑल्सो वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि इनका रॉ मटेरियल्स के पास कितना स्टफ है, कितना कंट्रोल आ सकता है, सोर्सिंग कितना है, ऑल ऑफ दिस इज इंक्लूडेड अंडर डोमिनेंट पोजीशन. तो चलो जी, यहां तक हो गया जी डोमिनेंट पोजीशन क्या है. अब मैं एक एग्जांपल दूंगा और जिसको समझ में आ गया वो एक सेकंड में समझ जाएगा. उबर, उबर एज अ कैब एग्रीगेटर. सो उबर इंडिया का केस हुआ था सर 2019 का, उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने और रादर कंपटीशन कमीशन ने बोल दिया था क्योंकि ये एब्सोल्युटली डोमिनेंट पोजीशन में, एब्सोल्युटली डोमिनेंट पोजीशन में अगर ये अपने प्राइसेस बढ़ा देते हैं तो दैट वुड बी कंसिडर्ड एज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज प्रेडेटरी प्राइसिंग. जी टैक्सी है, अब उबर के सिवाय आपके पास कोई चॉइस नहीं है, तो आपको 2019 का उबर जजमेंट ये बोलना पड़ेगा कि सिंस उबर वाज इन और इज इन डोमिनेंट पोजीशन, उनको पास प्रेडेटरी, अगर उन्होंने प्राइसेस इरैशनली या आर्बिट्ररीली बढ़ा दिए, देन इट विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज प्रेडेटरी प्राइसिंग. उसी तरह से सर एक बहुत ही फेमस केस था विच वाज द गूगल वर्सेस कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया, जो बहुत न्यूज में था. और ये इंपॉर्टेंट ये यहाँ पर था कि अगर गूगल, जिसको आज हम सर्च करते हैं तो गूगल को सर्च करते हैं, जहां भी वर्ड हो गया, एडजेक्टिव हो गया या रादर वर्ब हो गया कि यार हम गूगल कर रहे हैं, सो गूगल अगर उस सर्च इंजन की कैपेसिटी में if they start predominantly showing their own products, then they are misusing dominant position. So ये बहुत ही अच्छा क्वेश्चन था सर, और थोड़े हमने इनके लिए नोट्स बनाए एंड आई एम श्योर कि आपको इसमें दिख रहा होगा. तो सर एनीथिंग यू वांट टू ऐड? मैं तो इस बारे में काफी देर बोलता ही चले जाऊंगा, तो आई थिंक we have to keep the answer.
We're always closest to the cases that we argue more than anything else. Sir, of course, sir, 2013 was the last time when the UPSC had asked a financial or a commercial statutory body. उसके बाद से वो CAG, NHRC, NCW, इसी में मतलब they were rotating.
Yes.
And in 2013, sir, according to the recommendations of the Financial Sector Legislative Commission, Reforms Commission, there was a recommendation that the IRDA and the SEBI have to be merged to make it more efficient. So the context was very clear. And here also, as you very accurately demonstrated, sir, the Google judgment where they've been slapped with a penalty of, I think, more than 1,300 crores. I think now they've appealed to the Supreme Court, and that order pe, I think Supreme Court पहुंचे हुए हैं. So Google has been an issue, Paytm has been an issue. Very recently, the WhatsApp has been an issue. Google billing has been an issue, and competition index, which is usually released in the month of January, February every year, also saw that India was not being a very fairly competitive place to be in. And in the larger context of Make in India and Atmanirbhar India, where you should require for Indian businesses to be able to compete, this becomes a question. But sir, honestly, I had missed this question. I did not cover this in the mains exam for the mains Magna Carta this year, but it's my fault. But better luck to all of us next time. I didn't cover this this time.
No, sir. Obviously, sir, everything cannot be covered, and we can only do the best into our water capacity. But this was just a chance coincidence that since I was involved in certain matters, that is why I probably got to know. But मेरे ख्याल से so the entire issue on this part is that we have to be very very aware of what is happening around. Google's case was in the limelight so much so that even in normal affairs, if the student is kind of just reading through, they would be aware of this part. And only thing जो मुझे लगा, I think this is where मैंने सर initial inputs यही बात बोले थे, that I don't think this exam was a simple exam because of this word. For example, dominant position.
This
Now
is a technical section, sir. I think it's section 3 or 4 of the Competition Act. I don't remember exactly, but I think one of the first few sections of the Competition Act.
well, 19, sir. 19 would
19,
be the
19,
one.
19.
And yes.
Right.
Oh, so this is this. So my point here is ki, how dare anybody call this exam as an easy exam? Why, if you don't know how to define dominant position? Because anybody would write only dominant position as an English dominant position until unless he's a lawyer by profession and he is aware of what dominant is. So, but the happy news here is that in Unacademy notes, we are very, very sure we put it in notes 2.0 as well as in Articulate magazine. Imagine, sir, if you can read the Articulate magazine part, hats off to our team. They wrote it so nicely that about everything about the Competition Commission of India. And in fact, look at the probable questions, sir. Critically examine the significance of Competition Commission due to changing dynamics of the market. Amazing. I think we should take all honor and all credit on this part. Unacademy is doing a great job at doing this part. जो सीरियस होगा उसका अपने आप फायदा हो ही जाएगा. सर, ये क्वेश्चन क्या what are you doing, sir? We are all dancing. So what do we say this to the question? So question number 11, sir. Constitution of India is a living instrument with capabilities of enormous dynamism. It is a constitution made for a progressive society. Illustrate with a special reference to expanding horizons of the right to life and personal liberty. Preferably, it should be 1,000 word question. Sir, what do you think on this question, sir?
Sir, this question is just served on a platter because anybody who's prepared an iota for the mains exam would have prepared the evolution of Article 21, would have prepared how Article 21 has been the birthplace of so many implied rights so well enjoyed by the citizens of the country. Having said that, sir, the question has been framed rather delicately. जो जो पहला स्टेटमेंट है जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेट करता है कि it talks about the dynamism of the constitution, a balance of the rigidity and the flexibility of the constitution, and it tells you how the constitution is built for a progressive society. But then it asks you to illustrate with a special reference to 21. So while a majority of our focus has to be on 21, we also have to look at perhaps interpretations of Article 19, perhaps interpretations of Article 14, if we could remember at that point of time, which could be fairly difficult. But at least 21 को बेस बना के थोड़ा बहुत 19 तो कर ही सकते हैं, sir. I think this is a straightforward. I mean, there is too much to say and too much to write. It's a perfectly good question for 15 marks. I don't think they've gone wrong with this question at all.
Absolutely. So करना इसमें यही था, as sir has already said. But इससे पहले कि मैं start करूँगा, all dear learners, however, how many of you are attending, सब लोग एक एक एग्जाम्पल दे दो ऑफ आर्टिकल 21 इंटरप्रिटेशन या फिर एक्सपैंडिंग स्कोप ऑफ एनी सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट एंड व्हाट कैन बी यू इंक्लूड इफ यू थिंक ऑफ प्रोग्रेसिव सोसाइटी. जल्दी से डालना स्टार्ट कर दो एवरीवन. ओके, हम लोग आपका ही उठा लेंगे बिकॉज आई एम श्योर द स्टूडेंट्स नो इक्वली. चाहे आप आर्टिकल 21 में बोलोगे राइट टू मैरी, राइट टू चेंज योर फेथ, हादिया केस, जल्दी जल्दी स्टार्ट करो. बीट मी. ओके, मैं भी तुम्हारे साथ स्टार्ट करूंगा, तुम भी जो जो तुम्हें याद आ रहा है. राइट टू प्राइवेसी, विल यू मेंशन दैट? फ्रेंड्स कम ऑन, पिक अप एवरीवन. वेरी गुड. आधार केस आ गया, सुयश ने डाल दिया. एवरीवन क्विकली डालो. राइट टू क्लीन एयर वाटर, स्नेहशीष मत डालना जब तक जजमेंट ना आए. जजमेंट के साथ डालो, हरी अप. सेम सेक्स मैरिज पे डिस्कशन. अब इससे सेम सेक्स मैरिज हुआ नहीं है, प्लीज थोड़ा सा. So in the meanwhile, sir, मैं इनको दिखा देता हूँ. So what are the major provisions which makes us a breathing, living document? We have amendability, we have fundamental rights given, we have judicial interpretation left to Supreme Court, Article 129, final interpreter, and of course the basic structure. So थोड़ी बहुत judgment जो हमारे सामने डाली हुई है, sir. So I think as you said, there could be the more is less because less is more, because हम इसमें डालते ही जा सकते हैं. Be it right to die, be it right to privacy, be it right to same-sex marriages, we are discussing that. All of that is included, section 377, and with a special emphasis which sir has also pointed out. अगर हम article 14 को इसके साथ count करेंगे तो we will also be looking at Navteej Singh Johar case and the Nalsa judgment, which obviously will deal with LGBTQ judgments. So Right to Die with Dignity पे you can talk common cause case, or for that matter Aruna Shanbag case. All of that can be included. In other words, this is your playground. Play this game, and you can have hundreds and hundreds of things that you can speak. Just remember, keep a tab on the word limit. Do you agree, sir? Yes, आपने पहले पढ़ाया हुआ है, so right to life and liberty, sir, की
Yes, sir.
mains.
Sir, if I may just add, sir, two very small points to your discussion, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, एक चीज मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ सर कि बच्चे फंडामेंटल राइट्स को लेके जब मेंस में प्रिपेयर करते हैं तो थोड़ा सा बहक जाते हैं, थोड़ा भटक जाते हैं। आज तक पिछले 10 सालों में सिर्फ और सिर्फ 14, 19 और 21 के अराउंड ही मेंस में सवाल आए हैं सर। इसके अलावा कभी भी नहीं आए, because all the other issues become so sensitive that you will not be able to give an adequate opinion.
Yes. Yes.
And secondly, sir, I got very lucky with this also because I had done this in the Magna Carta mains course that we did before the mains exam. Very extensively, everything that we've covered, sir. There's a very small warning, sir. The question here itself gives you a very clear indicator. A lot of students would have this doubt कि भाई यहाँ fundamental rights तो बोला ही नहीं है कि it is only just about rights and progression, but it talks about progressive society. So the only thing in the constitution that dominantly makes you a progressive society is effectively part 3. नहीं तो बच्चे बोले कि हमने ये amendment में ये बदल दिया, इससे भी तो देश बदल रहा है. But progression in a society would dominantly be coming from part 3, sir. That is why the scope of the question is given within the question itself, sir.
Yes, yes.
Thank
And
you, sir.
It's very easy to, like, sir, it's very easy to start beating around the bush and start writing the entire book. But please listen to the question, and सबसे important here is illustrate था. Everyone, my dear friends, everyone who's hearing me out, mains question का एक open secret है, और सब open secret है क्या? Everybody know. The word comment is different from criticize. Criticize is different from analyze. Analyze is different from illustrate. You have to pay very close attention to this tail line, the tail word. So be very, यहाँ पे illustrate है, तो आप exact examples लिखने पड़ेंगे. You just can't run away from that. Everyone, please acknowledge that. Say yes. Have you understood this part? आपको वो tail word समझना पड़ेगा. You have to understand that comment is different from analysis. Analysis is different from, say, contrast. Contrast is different from illustrate, and so on and so forth. Everyone participate. ये सेशन अलग है. We at Unacademy are very very serious in cracking this exam. हम आपके यहाँ पर entertainment के लिए नहीं आ रहे, right? हम आपके लिए बड़े strictly पढ़ा रहे हैं. इसलिए I'm very famous at blocking students. Sir, आपको पता है, I am the dictatorial democrat of Unacademy. I have blocked more students than, my block list is expanding because I don't want anyone to destroy the chances of somebody who wants to crack this exam by him not maintaining the decorum of the class. So मेरे बहुत दुश्मन है, sir. Okay.
Sir, ironically, when I teach Article 19, the first thing I suspend for the students is their Article 19.
I know. So the problem is I have many dushman in aspirant world. I have many friends also, but I have many dushman also. So never mind, sir. So let's look at the next question, sir. Explain the constitutional perspectives of gender justice with the help of relevant constitutional provisions and case laws. Sir, amazingly, again and again, the same trend coming. In a way, a very welcome spot to Unacademy or to UPSC that they are asking from previous year questions. So this is very interesting. I think जो पिछले साल का prelims का paper का criticism हुआ, I think they've taken some kind of note on that. So previous year questions, ma'am, which steps are required for constitutionalization of a commission? Do you think imparting constitutionality to National Commission for Women would ensure greater gender justice and empowerment in India? Give reasons. ये वैसे ही बड़ा strange tough question माना गया था. Where is the National Commission for Women able to strategize and tackle the problems that women face at both private and public spheres? Give reasons. So would you like to share your 2 cents on this, sir?
So just about 2 cents, sir. Sir, when we started our discussion, हम ये बात कर रहे थे कि देखो हम सब एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे, दुनिया एक्सपेक्ट कर रही थी कि यूसीसी पे सवाल आएगा. यूसीसी पे सवाल नहीं आना था because there was nothing done on UCC. It was just in thin air. It was just a discussion. But the focal point of that discussion was that you wanted UCC to come because there were certain question marks on the way gender was being treated within personal laws. That was a triggering event. And
Yes.
just about a month or two ago, so you would remember the Supreme Court had released a handbook on gender stereotyping.
Yes.
When
Yes.
you add both of them together, gender justice and the role of the courts become a ready-made question for all of us to answer. The difficult part here, in my opinion, would be to defining gender justice as a component of a form of justice.
Yes.
Gender justice also has to be a political gender justice, a social and gender justice, cultural, economic, and so on and so forth. And of course, then I think you may please let us know what else could be done.
Okay. So I'll take your permission and I'll start at least on what I felt. I think this question was relatively simple if you cater to the needs of gender justice through constitution. It would have become a very simple anchor point from where I would take. So Article 41, 42, 43, Article 39 mentioning with relationship to women, Article 23, right? Again, similarly, Article 14, equality before law, equal protection of laws. Article 15, state shall not discriminate on the basis of race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Article 16, equal opportunity in public employment. There will be no discrimination on the basis of race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth, descent, or residence. All of that will take me to gender justice. All of that will take me to gender justice. So I'll be on a very clean wicket if I take 5 points on this part and start dragging my question, or rather stretching my question on this part. Another important point here is the point here is it is gender justice. I really like this word. So drawing from some inspiration from NCRT way back in class 6 and 7, where they mentioned that sex is different from gender. So again, because I'm teaching political science, I'm teaching PSIR. Suddenly, I remember Simone de Beauvoir's statement that you're not born a woman, you are made a woman. Because gender stereotyping is what the society does for me. So when the Supreme Court now interprets the Constitution, so I'm just going ahead. I'm sorry, sir. I'll just take 2 minutes more. I don't want to stretch on time, but just to get this point. So if I look at all this part and I read laws, be it marriage laws, be it domestic violence laws, be it immoral trafficking prevention. In fact, why not read some part of fundamental duties also? Article 51, capital A, subclause E, you shall not renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. On that laws are domestic violence laws, are all the rape laws, anti-rape laws, all the dowry prohibitions act and so on and so forth. I think it becomes very simple on this part. Now, यहाँ पर there's a certain case laws. So nobody should be away from the fact of Vishaka case, the Bhavari Devi case. Everybody should talk about prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. ये posh act की जो training हो गई है compulsory हो गई है. Everybody in the every office has to understand that. गौरव जैन वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया केस, जिसमें prostitutes के बच्चों के साथ किस तरह से discrimination होता है उसको. And of course, let us never forget the cases of triple talaq, the Sabarimala, the Navtej Singh Johar case, and also the Joseph Shine case and so on. इसमें हिंदू सक्सेशन एक्ट में जो interpretation हुआ, women can become empowered with relationship to succession of father's property. All of that should be included. And sir, 10 marks के लिए या 15 marks के लिए जब आप ये लिख रहे हो तो I think your hands are full. You can write this much. Your word limit is crossed. I think, and you've written everything under the sun. So I think you're on good wicket. So,
Sir, because there are so many constitutional provisions, one would have to very accurately manage the space that one is given. In my view, sir, even if they just made a table saying rights provisions, directive principles provisions, duty provisions, and maybe provisions of reservation in local self-government, they would be able to write half the question in half the space. And
Yes.
then they can spend some time on the case laws around it.
Exactly. So
Sir,
I think
sorry, sir.
sorry, please carry on. Sorry.
Sir, a fundamental right that is so remarkably missed by a lot of kids when they write answers like this is sir Article 15 clause 3, which very categorically provides for special provisions to be created for women and children right at the very start of our constitution, sir. And in fact, that is a great contextual introduction to an answer on gender justice as well.
True.
You will see enough and more answers on 13, 14. You'll see enough and more provisions on 14 and 16 and 15 and 21. वो सब घुमा देंगे. The one article that they should definitely write, which categorically speaks of special provisions for women, is
Yes.
Article 15, Clause 3, sir.
Yes. So, very nicely, I think we can write, sir, answers. We have enough content. अब सारा क्या है, खजाना कैसे, उसको compact कैसे बनाना. And Kiran, I would actually praise you. Okay, आपको exact quote याद था Simone de Beauvoir, so I'm very happy that her wings are cut, and after that, it's complained how she does not fly. So Kiran, very, very nicely done. ये आपको PSR में ज़्यादा काम आएगा as compared to mains, but good point. Sir, should we go to the next question, sir? Question number 13.
Certainly, sir.
Sir, account for the legal and political factors responsible for the reduced frequency of using Article 356 by the governments since mid-1990s. Again, sir, this is so amazing. The 356 is back in frame, okay, and again back in discussion. So I'll just add my 2 cents and then sir will take over on this part, sir. Sir, again, we are talking about Article 356. It has been the bone of contention ever since it was framed in the first place. I think when it was discussed in the Constituent Assembly also, at that time also there were question marks raised on this, and Baba Sahib at that time had said that it would be a dead letter. Why would the president ever resolve, or why would the government ever resolve to Article 356? But it has been misused, and it has been misused hundreds of times, and at one time a political weapon. Now the question is, account for the legal and political factors responsible for the reduced frequency. So now the interesting part is, let us take one by one each of them. And since 1990s, so why 1990s? What happened in 1990s? I wonder. I ask myself this question: why 1990s? So 1990s saw SR Bommai judgment. This is one. 1990s saw we in India having to be living with coalition government. 1990s saw liberalization, privatization, globalization. We did not want any of this one party government. In other words, somebody who's going to dominate the entire political landscape. 1990s also saw regional powers coming into fray, especially in the states, etc. And also that they had a role in coalition politics, so they had much to say in this part. 1990s also saw at a later stage the implementation of, not in the complete sense, but at least certain level of implementation of administrative reforms. All right, BE8, Sarkaria Commission to a certain extent, then later on to a certain extent of the Punchi Commission. So yes, 70s and 80s were bad times with the relationship to 356. There were several 70s and 80s. We had many of these factors. So we have SR Bommai case, we have judicial activism, we have the formation of interstate councils, coalition politics, all the keywords are over here. We can add rise of regional parties, consensus building became an important point. Then also, you can also mention the active role of president if you want. K.R. Narayan is a classical example of having not imposed president's rule. If you want to do it, अगर तुम्हें मालूम है तो आप इसे डाल सकते हो, नहीं मालूम है तो don't do it, right? And of course, the other factors, like probably we are becoming a mature federation. I don't know if you want to say that. And of course, the role of media and civil society. So these would be the keywords around which your answer should go. And that should be more or less covering up the time and the word limit for this. So, Atish sir.
Sir, this question is particularly interesting because the opinion has already been embedded in the question. They are not asking us as to whether we have done a good job as a central government. They're telling us that we have done a good job and we are still not misusing the powers under 356. So you would be reminded of a question on the Rajya Sabha, which was asked a few years ago, on when they said, explain how the Rajya Sabha has transformed itself from a useless Stephanie tire to a very important function in the parliamentary ecosystem of the country. So I would look at this as a question where the question has already told you what you need to write. You just have to bifurcate it into headings and subheadings. And that's pretty much it, sir. As you've rightly mentioned, the key part which will differentiate the kids getting great marks out of this and average marks out of this is contextualizing as to what happened in the 1990s.
Yes.
And as you said, whether it is about SR Bomai's case, or we were slowly moving towards a different form of government, that is the contextualizing factor.
Yes.
And the legal factors would include, of course, the judgments as well. And if there have been any amendments that have been made, if not there have been any amendments, if there have been any changes in the way the practices have been done. So I think it would be a very overall question. So this is a simple, straightforward question. It's a historical question, and I would say that the reason this question was asked this year is because, sir, you would perhaps concur with me on this. There were so many times where we thought it is only a matter of an hour or so where an emergency would be imposed in a state,
But
with
wasn't.
naming the states, but it wasn't being done. So that was showcasing a sense of restraint, and there was such a euphoria slash a fear of whether emergency would be imposed or not. I think that could perhaps be the context to this question, and so you've covered most of the points anyway brilliantly.
Thank you, sir. And I'm very it's very interesting, sir, at this stage that suppose this graph would be made and this graph is shown. This graph actually speaks volumes on this part. So if you look at 70s and 80s, right, look at the volume spiking up and suddenly going down by the time we were 2014, 19. And so this graph itself speaks a story which actually which summarizes this answer. The only thing that you have to put is legal and political, divide it into legal reasons and political reasons, and then I think you are on a very good ground to answer a very good question. So let's look at the next question. Question number 15 says, explain the significance of the 101st constitutional amendment. To what extent does it reflect accommodative spirit of federalism? So let us not answer this question, right? I am first asking every learner, write down what does 101st constitutional amendment speak about? किसके बारे में है? चलो, come on, answer everyone. 101st constitutional amendment किसके बारे में है? एक वर्ड डाल दो. रुद्र प्रताप सिंह ने डाल दिया. जल्दी से डालो. Everyone, wake up. अनअकैडमी में नींद उड़ाने का काम है. चलो, everyone now. सिर्फ रुद्र प्रताप सिंह ने डाला. बाकियों को पता ही नहीं था. ऋतु को मालूम है. चलो, hurry up, everyone. सुयश. So it has got something to do with GST. Dr. Bharat. So it has got something to do with GST. Now the question here is, so explain the significance of the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act, which dealt with introduction of GST. Now the question here is, to what extent does it reflect the accommodative spirit of federalism? Atish sir, would you like to?
Sir, sure. Sir, UPSC loves to celebrate 5-year, 10-year anniversaries. तो ये 5 साल हो गए तो पूछना ही था सर. Also, so the significance of the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act is the fact that GST came into existence, and it was a new era in financial center-state relations, and how essentially financial center-state relations are now structured dominantly in and around GST. The second part of the question, which is the most interesting part, which is the accommodative spirit, we've generally looked at federalism from a very unitary perspective. And the UPSC has been known to throw around terms such as cooperative federalism or competitive federalism or combative federalism, or to the point of even saying confrontational federalism. When we say accommodative, it is effectively saying that somebody is accommodating somebody. So it has a little bit of a flavor of unitary federalism, but we're saying that we're accommodating state interests. And that has been in the context of the reservations that have been placed on record by the states in terms of their share, in terms of COVID compensation that had to be given to them, in terms of allowing them time for compliance. So a lot of these things that the states were not able to implement on time was now being able to be done because of the accommodative spirit of federalism per se.
Sure. Sir, if I may add to my kind of limited understanding of the subject, I was kind of understanding why did they use the word accommodative spirit of federalism vis-a-vis 101st Constitutional Amendment. What was so accommodative about GST? So first of all, sir, what I would say is that 101st Constitutional Amendment was that rigid, so-called, quote unquote, rigid variety of constitutional amendments, since the states had to ratify it. And the states very well knew that the financial relationship between the center and the states in India is as it is skewed in the favor of center so badly, but still they decided to go ahead with it. This was something that that says that they were kind of nervous, but they still went ahead with that, and they run. First of all, if you read Sarkaria Commission, if you read Kunchi Commission, if you read Second ARC, everywhere, if you read one common thread that goes through all of them, is that the financial relationship between the center and the state should be made as equal as possible. At least, if not equal, at least make it more rational. But despite of that part, these states decided to ratify this amendment and went ahead. So it was a leap of faith, so to say, hence called as accommodative. So federalism in India, since it is not constitutionally so-called rigid, so-called on the basis of an agreement like that in USA, it only depends upon my spirit with your spirit. So the states decided to have a leap of faith, decided to trust the center, and said, no problem, we're going to ratify the 101st Amendment. Let's go with this kind of distribution. I'm not saying that they are very happy about it, because there will be issues and issues are always there, but still it was reflecting. The word here is, to what extent does it reflect the accommodative spirit of federalism? So what I would say is, the question was less of forward looking, rather than that it was to explain the significance of 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. So I think this question was based on the time space axis on the evening of when 101st Amendment Act was passed. Sir, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely, sir. So, so dominantly, exactly. If you read the question fairly carefully, it not only it does not ask you in terms of how accommodative has it been. It asks you the extent to it
Exactly,
and the
exactly.
extent of the 101st Amendment.
So
And
on the question is to be asked on the evening of that day, on the day when they passed it. They said, now tell us
correct.
how this is reflecting
So,
the accommodative
for
spirit of
example, something as simple as having a GST council where the
it.
states have a representation and most decisions have to be taken by a three-fourth majority is in fact reflective of the accommodative spirit of federalism. So,
True.
so the essence, the basic features of it, which therefore allow for COVID compensation regimes and all of those things to kick in, because it was inbuilt into the 101st Amendment, because it was allowed because of the 101st Amendment. Absolutely.
So, thank you, sir. So my point over here is, it is very easy and it's a point of convenience over here that we start writing about how GST fared, But I don't think that this is the point of the question. They are not asking how GST functioned well. Do we like them? Do we don't like them on that part? I think it was the intention, the statement of object and reason. That day on when we were passing 101st Amendment, are you recommending or are you accepting that is a accommodative spirit? Because, like you said, GST Council being formed, this why were the states not nervous? Why did the states not say no? But because there is that kind of accommodative spirit of federalism. Because federalism, sir. Now, sir, bringing me to another question. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud on this part also. I'm just asking myself this question: why did UPSC ask the word accommodative spirit of federalism? Because in a way, it is very funny, sir. Because federalism itself means accommodation. So I hope the term, the truest spirit of federalism is
Completely agreed, sir. Completely agreed. Yeah.
so federalism by per se means it is accommodative in the nature. Otherwise, federalism ही काय का? Federalism ही काय को हुआ? Federalism है ही ये distribution of power between the center and the states and whatnot and all that stuff. So problem ये हो रहा था कि there are disputes in our definition of federalism. So ये मेरे ख्याल से ये क्वेश्चन बहुत डाइसी है. I'm sorry to say, मुझे लग रहा है ये क्वेश्चन में there are layers in this question. This question cannot be answered like a short note question. This cannot be an economic question, because मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि इसको आप GS3 की तरह भी आंसर दे सकते हो. इसको आप GS3 करिए जी, GS3 ठीक नहीं हुआ या whatever, या इतना रेवेन्यू नहीं हुआ. I don't think that is the question. मेरे ख्याल से ये क्वेश्चन is more on this part कि we were having a very different concept of federalism. We were having more of unitary inclination. We were having more of revenue sharing in the favor of the union. We were always having this problem. हमारा पूरा सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशनशिप फाइनेंशियल के कॉन्सेप्ट में यूनिटरी ज्यादा था, उसके बावजूद हमारे स्टेट्स ने हाँ बोल दिया. डज इट रिफ्लेक्ट दैट हमारे स्टेट्स आज भी ट्रस्ट करते हैं सेंटर को या नहीं? So I think this was that kind of question, and we could have gone very beautifully into that part. So, and then of course we can always support कि हम लोगों ने harmonization of GST laws देखा, revenue sharing देखा, COVID crisis देखा, and so on and so forth. So I guess अगर हमने इसका पल्स नहीं पकड़ा, so there is, मुझे लगता है we can deviate, or rather we can drift in the wrong direction. Rather than talking of 101st amendment, हम लोग ज्यादातर बात GST के प्रो एंड कॉन करने लग जाएंगे. So
Completely agreed, sir. Completely agreed. Absolutely.
So सर ये भी हम लोगों ने अनअकैडमी के नोट्स में देखा है, आर्टिकुलेट मैगजीन में देखा है, नोट्स 2.0 में देखा है. लेट्स लुक एट क्वेश्चन नंबर 16. आई थिंक सर आपके साथ डिस्कस करते हुए मजा आ रहा है, या फिर हमारा टाइम ज्यादा फास्ट जा रहा है, बिकॉज वी आर pretty much in 1.5 hours and we still have many questions. So slightly let's pick up speed and
the age-old jokes go, sir. Two lawyers walk into a bar and then the joke continues forever.
And then the joke continues. And but वो problem ये है ना सर, learners जो है ना सर, कहीं ऐसा ना हो जाए ना कि चले जाए, फिर हम दोनों ही डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, कोई है ही नहीं. So let's continue with this part. Question number 16, sir. Explain the structure of parliamentary committee system. How far have the financial committees helped in institutionalization of Indian Parliament? Sir, would you like to have a go at this, sir?
Sir, standard format question. They've always asked a question on parliamentary committees. What they've done differently this time is that they've asked the structure of the parliamentary committee system as a whole, which was rather surprising and good. Two, sir, the institutionalization of the Indian Parliament is again a word that has to be very clearly explained. When we're saying that we want to institutionalize the Indian Parliament, it basically means you have to achieve the objectives for which you set up Indian Parliament in the first place. And therefore, how are financial committees doing this? In fact, sir, this question would therefore have so many, I would say, so many traps in their own right. That first you are supposed to answer the structure, then you are not, and people would end up just writing whatever they knew about parliamentary committees. So first you're supposed to answer the structure. Two, you're only supposed to talk about financial committees and their institutionalization. A lot of people would end up going on a larger tangent about committees in general. And three, understanding institutionalization of the Indian Parliament. So again, I have been lucky in this question itself. We've done this not only from a structural point of view, but also from an issues and all of those points of view. Very clearly verbatim covered, so that I got a little lucky this time with this. I think आपने भी सर ये कराया ही था. I remember you were telling me about it also.
So parliamentary committees, actually what had happened, so there was a chance meeting actually long time back when I was teaching in so-called offline classes. So I met a topper, okay, and I had taught him, and at that time he said after he became a topper, he met me. So I was just talking to him over a coffee. So he said at that time, so I just asked him off the cuff, I said, what was the most difficult topic that you ever encountered in polity? So he said, I never understood parliamentary committees. I always got confused in that. Somehow that point stuck with me. So I always intend to start teaching and share PDFs or whatever. Otherwise, I usually don't share PDFs. But as you said correctly, the parliamentary standing committees, they are usually here. Here, actually, they're talking about financial committees. So we are talking about the PAC, we are talking about the estimates committee, and we are talking about the COPU, the committee on public undertakings. So my focus on this question will again, my question, I don't know why, probably the lawyer in me is shouting again and again, or probably my eyes are looking at things. Why are they talking about institutionalization of Indian Parliament? What is institutionalization of Indian Parliament? What went wrong? So my question, allow me, sir, about 2 minutes on my 2 cents in this part.
Certainly, sir.
So why, I mean, how far have financial committees helped in institutionalization of Indian Parliament? My question to myself out here is that why are we talking about institutionalization of Indian Parliament? Is Parliament not an institution already? I don't know. Is it not an institution already? The point here is that was Parliament able to perform under certain set of circumstances or not? This is the question that UPSC wants student to answer. They don't want a short note on parliamentary committee. They don't want a short note on financial committees. They want to see, did Parliament rise to the occasion when the need came? And my answer to that is yes, it did. So my second question would be, when did they do it and how did they do it? So I remember the Joint Parliamentary Committee investigations, be it in the Bofors case, be it in the 2G scam, be it in the later on Pepsi scam case. Now, Joint Parliamentary Committee investigation does not function until unless the Public Accounts Committee raises an alarm, raises a red flag and says that is wrong, there has been a scam, go and investigate. And did the Parliamentary Committee allow the Parliament to take action? Yes. Did we charge sheet certain people? Yes. Were we able to ask the executive certain questions? Yes. Hence, we have an answer. Yes, the financial committees perform their job so well. Their structure is so well done. The Public Accounts Committee takes the review powers of the CAG. It reviews the CAG's report, looks into the matter. Have they done it? Yes, they have done it. We have examples. Yes, we have done this. Has Estimates Committee. So if you sir remember last to last year, Estimates Committee had given number of recommendations in government how to save money. Similarly, the Air India, the BSNL case, the disinvestment case, the Committee on Public Undertakings, have they recommended? Yes. Have we gone into better fiscal management? Yes. I think this is the question which needs to be answered over here. So I guess if we are able to do these questions, they will be able to answer this part. We are talking about the word here is, sir, if you read the question, it is how far have the financial committees helped in institutionalization of Indian Parliament? So has the Parliament woken up? Yes. Has the Parliament acted? Yes. How has that been held by financial committee? So there are two parts of the question. The first part is structure of a parliamentary committee system, wherein you will write that there is no executive a part of it. There will be proportional representation. They have the power to ask questions. They can have other members other than the members of parliament. They can have experts on that. They can have ad hoc committees. They can have standing committees, so on and so forth. And then the second part of a small introduction to financial committees and get straight to business of how they have been successful till date, with certain very classical examples till the fifth one, at least till the 2G scam of this one. So,
Absolutely, sir. In fact, a question like this has to be very clearly structured. The introduction would be perhaps a recent parliamentary committee examination that could be put on record. Post that, we would get into details of the structure of the parliamentary committee, that we would get into the role of the finance committee and give examples. Whether it is, you would remember, sir, the Bombay housing other scam was also done
yes,
because
yes.
of the public accounts committee. The 2G scam, the Commonwealth scam, they were all unearthed by the parliamentary committees only, sir.
So, absolutely, sir. And I think many in our competition, if there's a good word to that, although I don't think anybody competes with us, but I think many the so-called UPSC bloggers and UPSC fun mill, there is a treadmill and there is a fun mill which is happening. They would miss this point. I'm 100% sure, because they would start suggesting UPSC as well, right? कुछ तो लिख कर आओ बाबा, कुछ तो financial committee है, कुछ तो ये. I know I'm making enemies left, right, and center, but who cares? For me, the only matter that matters here is that students should take this exam very, very seriously. This is UPSC. This is a constitutional body. They're not going to have you ask right jo marti jo dil mein aaya. There is a particular requirement of this question. Please start understanding that, whether you like it, hate it, but you can't ignore us. So let's go to the next question, sir. So, question number 8. E-governance as a critical tool of governance has ushered in effectiveness, transparency, and accountability in governments. What inadequacies hamper the enhancement of these features? Amazing question. It's coming again and again. Matlab, e-governance is upon us. It is the digital revolution, the fourth industrial revolution. they're asking left, right, and center. I'm sure inadequacies पर अब आया, next time भी कुछ ना कुछ आएगा. We can practically take a safe bet on this. Atish sir, what do you want to say on this, sir? 2020 question repeat, sir.
100%, sir. And the question has been good in a way that the structure of the question is already given within the question itself. E-governance as a critical tool of governance has ushered in effectiveness, transparency, and accountability in government. What are the inadequacies hampering the enhancement of these features? So you simply have to divide your answer into what is stopping us, what is stopping e-governance from being effective, what is stopping e-governance from being transparent, what is stopping e-governance from being accountable, and how do you solve each of these? You want to write them there itself, you want to write them at the end of it. It is a standard format question. Sir, with your permission, I've again been a little lucky this time. I was expecting this largely because e-governance was not asked in the UPSC in the last 2-3 years. So I had a
Yes.
little bit of an inkling that they might ask it this year. So the scope of it, the challenges of it, the solutions of it, I had given the kids a little bit of a diagram also in terms of how it is to be done to add that 1 mark of a little bit of a cherry. So we've been lucky with this question. So we've covered this in our Magna Carta.
Great, sir. So I think we can look into these matters. We can go back. ये basic question है. I don't think इसमें मुझे नहीं लग रहा, मतलब I don't know. Every
अरे
time.
बहुत बेसिक है सर, इसमें मतलब क्या ही करेंगे.
हाँ.
ये तो बहुत बेसिक है सर, इसमें क्या ही करेंगे.
This was a basic question. मेरे ख्याल से वही हो रहा है. हर चौथा क्वेश्चन, 3 क्वेश्चन में मेरे ख्याल से there is a twist, there is a layer, there is a turn, but then there are also breathers, right? So I think like this was something that anybody who knew a bit about e-governance could have answered. तो आप करना क्या सकते हो? E-governance का फायदा क्या है? Core principles क्या है? People, process, technology, resources. You can talk about this part. Are there challenges? We know about the challenges. Security. We are talking about privacy. We are talking about cost, maintenance, accessibility. सबसे important, digital literacy, language awareness, people. और सबसे important जो मुझे इस टाइम खतरा लग रहा है, जिसके बारे में बहुत बहुत बातें हो रही है, the data protection, the protection of the channels, e-commerce, all of that. तो ये सर एक तरह से थोड़ा बहुत बात थोड़ी सी पुरानी है, बट ये सेकेंड एआरसी में भी मेंशन हुआ पड़ा था. तो व्हेन आई टीच सेकेंड एआरसी मुझे ऐसा थोड़ा सा याद आ जाता है कि वो बहुत पहले से बात हो रही थी. ई गवर्नेंस आएगा तो थोड़ा सा स्ट्रीमलाइनिंग होगी एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट स्टफ. मेरे ख्याल से दिस वाज अ स्टैंडर्ड क्वेश्चन. आई थिंक यू कुड हैव टेकन अ गो एट इट विदाउट लेफ्ट, राइट एंड सेंटर, एंड यू कुड हैव रियली थॉट अबाउट दिस. मेरे ख्याल से ये क्वेश्चन सर, जिसने बहुत अच्छा लिखा उसको 6 मार्क्स मिलेंगे, जिसने बहुत बुरा लिखा उसको 5 मिलेंगे. Something on that, because I don't think you can go very wrong on this part. So you can give examples of DigiLocker, Umang, and whatnot. And I think this was something that I don't think students are really waiting for us. The question which I really.
The question of the hour, sir.
Oh my God, this was the question. Yeah, this is that fear factor kind of question. लिखे तो लिखे क्या? Discuss the contribution of civil society groups for women's effective and meaningful participation and representation in state legislatures. So, would you like to have a go at this question? I think you can write
the context for this question was that it is only in 2023 that the state of Nagaland got its first ever women legislators.
Yes.
And that happened largely because of a lot of ground movements conducted by civil society groups. So it was in that context, and a very specific context, that they asked this question. Having said that, this question, sir, should not necessarily scare students away, because the question is, how have civic society groups which work for women have tried to ensure women participate or are represented more in X? That X could be anything. It is state legislatures today. So the movement and their objectives are the same. The figuring factor, which is say state legislature, changes. This was in fact a tough question, but such is such, sir.
I understand. इससे पहले कि सर हम लोग इसको आंसर दे, मैं थोड़ा सा मेहनत करा रहा हूँ. Those who are watching us. तो who was the first woman legislator from Nagaland? Everyone mention. बिना गूगल किए, गूगल से मेरी जान पहचान है. Don't try that. Okay, I know this. कोई बिना गूगल किए, everyone start writing the answer. Okay, so hurry up, everyone. who was the first woman legislator from Nagaland who was recently elected? So she comes from our fraternity. I hope you know she's a lawyer. So even bigger, even too proud. जल्दी से आंसर दो. रुद्र प्रताप, आकाश, सेजल, एवरीवन फटाफट आंसर दो. अरे वाह, आकाश ने आंसर तो दे दिया. आधा ही सही, लेकिन आंसर तो दे दिया. So अब
Akash was a part of the Magna Carta. He's written the mains this year.
अरे okay. So Hekani Jakalu, all right, that's the example. So obviously, अरे ये लिखा भी हुआ था हमने सर. So Hekani Jakalu of NDPP, okay, 60-member legislative assembly, and I think ये time away. So I'll just add my 2 cents to this part. I'm sure people have their own part on this part. So मेरे ख्याल से the question is again, like you said, contextual relevance is very, very important. So I think they were really asked because Nagaland has seen the first woman legislator, and we are answering on those lines at the same front. तो क्या हमारे पास कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स है जिसमें हम ये बात बोल सकते हैं कि yes, we have successfully had this kind of addition to this part? Yes. So there have been many advocacies of legislative reforms. There have been many people who have been speaking about that high time that women be given representation. Classical example, Bharat Jagriti, right, who have raised so many of these support programs for women's reservation bill, जिसमें 33% reservation की बात हो रही है. Also the Street Shakti, also the capacity building, the research and data collection and so forth. ये सर मेरे ख्याल से जनरल अवेयरनेस और करंट अवेयरनेस की बात है. अगर आप एसोसिएशन और डेमोक्रेटिक रिफॉर्म्स की बात नहीं कर रहे या न्यू की बात नहीं कर रहे, आई थिंक यू आर ऑन अ फेयरली वीक विकेट बिकॉज आप एक बहुत जनरल आंसर लिख कर आ जाएंगे. दिस कंट्री हैज इज सीन अ प्लेथोरा ऑफ or for that matter the ADR people all are now picking up, who are taking data. PRS में इसका data बहुत बार आ रहा है that we need more and more representation. It is high time that Indian democracy matures enough to get women into this part. Despite the fact that there is reservation in the local governments, we are not very successful because of सर ये थोड़ा सा अगर आपने तो जरूर पढ़ा ही होगा वो जो प्रधानपति kind of programs, all that stuff में हम लोगों ने देखा कि this is high time that we wake up. सो सिविल सोसाइटी ग्रुप्स में से ये आ रहा है. अभी ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट की बात नहीं हो रही, ये पार्लियामेंट्री लॉ की बात नहीं हो रही, सोसाइटी से आ रहा है. सो देयर इज अ रेज, देयर इज अ लाउड वॉइस कमिंग फ्रॉम द सोसाइटी. वी हैव टू मेंशन दोस. दिस इज द आई थिंक द रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन, दैट वी हैव टू मेंशन दोस थिंग्स इंस्टेड ऑफ गिविंग अ जनरल आंसर टू कि क्या एडवांटेजेस होगा और क्या डिसएडवांटेज होगा. सो आई एम जस्ट मेंशनिंग अ फ्यू ऑफ देम. अगर टू ऑफ द कफ, सो इट विल बी एसोसिएशन फॉर डेमोक्रेटिक रिफॉर्म्स, ऑल इंडिया वुमेन्स कॉन्फ्रेंस, देन सेवा एसोसिएशन, भारत जागृति. प्लीज नेम देम. Suddenly the examiner gets to know that you're reading. So this is my 2 cents on this part.
Absolutely, sir.
So all right. Social justice per question, sir. The crucial aspect of developmental process has been the inadequate attention paid to human resource development in India. Just measures that can address this inadequacy. सर मुझे नहीं लगता ये क्वेश्चन ऐसा है, एक बार भी ऐसा है कि पिछले 10 साल में ये क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली एंड इनडायरेक्टली नहीं पूछा गया. हर बजट में ये डिस्कशन हो रहा है. वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ HRD. So what do you want to say about it, sir? Sir, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Sir, yes, sir. Now you are audible, sir. Sorry, sir, I could not hear you in the meantime. Yes,
So
sir.
my point was that the question which relates to social justice here, the crucial aspect of developmental process has been inadequate attention paid to human resource development in India. Suggest measures that can address this inadequacy. My point is that HRD or human resource development, it has been a much often repeated concept. At least the trend, at least the theme has been repeated, not only in terms of UPSC but also in general discussions of the exam, also to a certain extent during the budget process and so on and so forth. So what do you want to say about it, sir? So this has been repeated also.
So, I said this question is an amalgamation of 2 different parts of the governance syllabus. The first is the development processes and the development policy, and the second is human resources development, which has been mentioned with respect to health education. So the question is actually asking the candidates to have a larger overview of how have we essentially run this country in the last 7 decades. This is like an overview question, and a question is a simple question, which is a classic
So you're
conflict.
not audible, sir. There is,
Sir,
there is, yeah, sorry.
this question is the classic question, conflict between growth and development, where growth is effectively structural, it's very economic, it's very infrastructure driven, whereas development, on the other hand, is a lot more wholesome, where you have socioeconomic indicators becoming better. And that's essentially the subject matter of this question, sir. This
Yes.
question asks us first, why did we have to build a stronger asset infrastructural base? Then the part was this right enough? Third is, this has led to a certain gap in the socio-economic ecosystem. The fourth is, now what do we do to make the HRD ecosystem better, which is the betterment of the socio-economic indicators. I think it's a very straightforward question, sir.
It's a
Spend
very straightforward question. So
GDP, yeah, very straightforward question, sir.
it's a very straightforward question in the sense that it was more dependent upon whether you were generally reading or you just don't beat around the bush, but use certain technical words. That is what my entire context is, and this is where I would have been very happy. Although why did I read it? I do sometimes completely forget. Sometimes when I'm reading, because you're a habitual reader, you start reading everything under the sun. But if you remember, so the last budget, there was a discussion on this at a very large extent, where the Honorable Finance Minister also spoke that we are spending more and more money, but we are not getting the kind of reward that we should be doing, because at the end of the day, we are a huge economy, but we are still not progressing to that extent. So, no, be it literacy, be it unemployment, we don't want to be lagging behind on this part, and that is why the entire situation here is that, so there is something that is wrong in us thinking, and why, what is the wrong part is that we are still thinking of, let's have a industry, let's have core development, let's have roads and highways, but we completely start forgetting that to a certain extent there will be a plateau in our economic growth. I happened to read that, and it really made sense at that time, that there will be a plateau because infrastructure has to be, there has to be a physical end to this part. But once your human resources developed, and that too the youngest country in the world, so to say, at that time, then it will be boost up. So how will we do it? It will be skill India's. Okay, there'll be more spending on Make in India, Skill India campaign, Kaushal Vikas, and all that stuff. Your primary healthcare should be better. Maternal mortality should be down. There'll be more spending on teaching, both primary as well as secondary, as well as higher education. Only on that part, despite inefficiencies. So the word here is very crucial. What I would say, it says crucial aspect of development process has been the inadequate attention paid to human resource development. Now the point here is, yes, there has been inadequate attention, and there has been inadequacy. That gap has to be filled. How will we do it? We'll spend more GDP, more money into that direction, and the same thing. So the similar previous year question, if you look at 2019, they asked the same question. Despite consistent experience of high growth, so word starts with despite, you are in trouble, because first you have to address despite. Okay, the word here is despite consistent experience of high growth. It's like, when you have a negative evidence, the opposite person start to put a negative evidence. First you have to address that, and you have to make sure that that is taken into, that is addressed. India still goes with the lowest indicators of human development. This was in 2019. So I don't think we have changed much, but we are going in that correct direction. I think question number 17, sir, takes the cherry on the cake. It's a cherry on the cake. I think, what will you do? I think this is competition.
Sir, development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable, by its nature, are discriminatory in approach. Do you agree, and give reasons for your answer? I don't think students have to be a little defensive on this. They don't have to feel a little worried as if the UPSC is trying to attack them. ये question कि मतलब ये कोई ऐसा instigating question नहीं था.
हाँ.
It was essentially a simple question. It's like saying how a subsidy by nature is an economist's nightmare, because that money is never going to come back. In the same way, when you are making development or welfare schemes, you're essentially spending money or you're spending resources to bring people to a level of self sufficiency so that they can be self sustaining and productive members of society. Now, that in itself would mean that you are trying to provide for a certain section of people while you would not want to do that for the rest of the few. Now, that in itself is, in a way, doing something for X but not doing something for Y. Is that discriminatory? No, it is not, because anybody who knows Article 40 knows equal protection of law, and therefore knows the concept of positive discrimination, and therefore knows that you have to pull up the low strung so that everybody can work and compete and live together. So a question like this therefore is essentially centered on what is called positive discrimination, and it could have, say, an affirmative action component of it. It could have for example, it could have another component in the sense that, for example, you're giving subsidy to X or a direct benefit transfer to Y, or let us say you're doing an exclusion criteria based on the socio-economic caste census, or you're providing a direct benefit transfer to a certain section of people. For example, I am not covered under Ayushman Bharat. Now, would I say that the Ayushman Bharat scheme is discriminatory towards me? No, because I am well within my means to afford a medical insurance policy for myself. But perhaps, let us say, somebody is not able to, but that somebody should also have a lesser private spending on health. And therefore, that person should also be able to have access to certain institutionalized medical facilities that perhaps other people would not. So I would not call it discriminatory. I would defend it by saying it is positive discrimination. So
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, the PSIR educator in me is crying for an opportunity. This question is eerily, it is, I think everyone who studied from me of politics PSIR is shouting at the top of his voice Rawls' theory of justice. This is Rawls' theory of justice. I don't know. I think somebody, I think if you remember, sir, if you recall yesterday also, we had this discussion that this was a question. The essay question was also from Rawls' theory of justice. They are asking Rawls, sir. I think this is in somebody, some examiner loves Rawls here, because he's asking the same question. This is the same question, sir. My point over here is that when we say development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable, I just draw a paragraph around this. Development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable by its nature. Sir, I'm changing the question. The question is development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable by its nature is the definition of a welfare state. Sir, fill in the blank. This is the question. If a state provides development, and I think all learners will appreciate on this part, it is nothing else but egalitarianism. It is nothing else but equitable distribution of resources. It is nothing else but Article 38, which speaks that India should have justice, social, economic, political, and welfare state. It is nothing else but the capitalist response to socialist challenge. It is also what Rawls was speaking about distributive justice. So my point here is, sir, the question is crying out for an opinion. The opinion says development and welfare schemes of the vulnerable by its nature are discriminatory in nature. Do you agree? I say no. My answer starts with no. It is not discriminatory in approach. I don't agree. They are asking for an opinion, and I say no. Instead of giving a around the bush answer, I would say no, because discrimination is a negative word in the sense that you are asking on this part. Positive discrimination is a component, or rather, it is an essential element of welfare state, wherein we decided to give equitable approach rather than a free market economy of the capitalist world or a liberal world, wherein there would be rich becoming richer, poor becoming poorer, there will be class discrimination, ultimately leading to pauperization, poverty, etc., and finally ending into a revolution. We did not want to go it, and that is why we experimented with the concept of welfare state. This is the question which was supported by Rawls' theory of justice as fairness. Justice as fairness was nothing else but distribution of resources to such an extent that till whatever extent possible we'll share it equally. But once it becomes unequal, it will be only unequal to support the least advantaged person, जो सबसे गरीब है, जिसके पास सबसे कम रिसोर्सेस है, उसको पहुंच जाना चाहिए. वहां पर इक्विटेबल, वहां पर इक्वालिटी अनइक्वल भी हो जाएगा, आई विल एक्सेप्ट इट. सो गिव द एग्जांपल्स, वो जो ऑलरेडी दिए हुए 2022 में यू नो डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर दिया है. क्यों हो रहा है? बिकॉज लीस्ट एडवांटेज पर्सन को मिलना ही चाहिए. राइट ऑफ पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज, लीस्ट एडवांटेज को मिलना ही चाहिए. I don't call it discrimination. I call this the spirit of justice. I call this fairness. And this welfare scheme is, that is why Article 38. Sir, मेरा point यहाँ पर ये है, Atish sir, if you allow me on this part, अगर discrimination word होता, तो ये Article 15 के साथ clash कर जाता. क्योंकि Article 15 में, Article 15 में तो clearly लिखा हुआ है, no citizen shall be discriminated on the basis of race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. लेकिन वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ, वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नेगेटिव वर्ड को हटाकर अगर मैं वेलफेयर स्टेट का कॉन्सेप्ट बोलूंगा तो मैं बड़े क्लियरली आंसर स्टार्ट करूंगा. इट विल टेक गट्स, बट आई हैव टू राइट दैट नो, दिस इज नॉट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, दिस इज द वेरी स्पिरिट ऑफ वेलफेयर स्टेट. और फिर मैं उसके साथ बहुत सारे एग्जांपल दे दूंगा जिसकी कोई कमी नहीं है. वो आप किसान मानधन योजना बोलो, सम्मान निधि योजना बोलो, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ प्रोग्राम बोलो. I think that's where I think the examiner is looking for somebody to take guts to take a stand and say, this is the definition of welfare scheme. This is what India was formed on the basis. This is the same thing that is written in the preamble, justice, social, economic, political. और justice का मतलब हमेशा equal होता ही नहीं है, be that in law or be that in social structure. So I think that would be the answer, sir.
Sir, in fact, a good way to structure this question would be, take the vulnerable sections, for example, women, children, elderly, disabled, caste, and transgenders. उनके लिए क्या क्या special provisions है, and how you would ensure that you're essentially doing this for egalitarianism.
Yes.
For example, if there's a welfare scheme that says if you are if the money is going into the woman's account, then you would get a higher sum, and only then would you be able to get money to build a house under an Awas Yojana. That is discriminatory for a positive way, but for a larger purpose. So basically, इस हिसाब से करना था सर.
बिल्कुल. And I'm very happy that we have certain very good students. So they are talking about like Navneet is saying, sir, it is actually the remedy to discrimination. Justice is a remedy to discrimination. Discrimination is about letting it go. In fact, positive discrimination अपने आप में actually uska better definition is affirmative action. That's a better definition. In fact, when Baba Sahib was asked, and in fact, sir, ये political science का भी बड़ा major concept है, इसको defensive separation बोलते हैं. Women and children को बचा के रखना है. It is altruism, जैसा dear family में होता है. So I think that is absolutely fine. Navneet, as I mentioned, Rudra Pratap ने examples दे दिए. Okay, and I'm very happy with somebody is mentioning even NCERT. So very happy to कि यार हमारे students are reading from NCERT. Proud of you. Okay, continue reading, and I think you will be able to understand the subject well. Sir, I think हमारे पास अब दो questions, एक question रह गया है from governance. Skill development programs have succeeded in increasing human resources supplied to various sectors. In the context of the statement, analyze the linkages between education, skill, and employment. Voila, this is straightforward as it comes. So मुझे तो लगता है ये सब facts के ही हो जाएगा. Sir, would you like to go at it, sir?
I have been again a little lucky with this question. In the Magna Carta mains, I covered specifically the skill development program and how it has enhanced education and employment and the linkages between them. But this question, if you could go back to the title of the question, sir, if that's okay, sir.
Please, sir. Sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, skill development programs have succeeded in increasing human resources supply to various sectors is a fact. Now, that fact has to be corroborated with data that your sectoral skill councils, your national skill development centers, your Kaushal Vikas Kendras, they've all been able to provide a ready made supply of the skilled workforce which is ready to be absorbed by the private sector. Now, the question actually starts from the second statement, which is a larger umbrella, a philosophical question that we could take up on a Friday night over certain concentrated liquids, which is analyze the linkages between education, skill, and employment. Now, this is the fundamental question, which means your education needs to have the necessary components that allow you to be ready for a certain job. That's vocational education. The skill that you've been taught in the vocational education has to be good enough, it has to be valid, it has to be available, it has to be in demand, it has to be updated, and therefore there must also be an availability of employment for you to use your vocational skills which are duly updated, ready to be embedded and allowed or being absorbed in the environment, in the employment workspace. I think it's a very good question, sir, because again, these are public policy questions, which I particularly quite like because this sort of takes you, a little away from, the basic theories that we generally study, sir.
Yes, and I think, sir, you're correctly mentioning here we required certain facts, and this is also a wake-up alarm for everyone who thinks कि data generate करना या data पढ़ना जरूरी नहीं होता, पढ़ना जरूरी होता है। स्पेशली इस तरह से क्वेश्चंस आएंगे और कुछ कीवर्ड्स जैसे कम्युनिकेशन, क्रिएटिविटी, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, कैरेक्टर डेवलपमेंट, एक बार ऐसे क्वेश्चंस डालना स्टार्ट कर दोगे, यू विल रियली रियली लाइक दिस। एंड again and I've repeated this n number of times, be abreast with what the government's focus is happening right now. Talk about that same thing part of, and then you will be able to answer this question very well. So sir, I think we have really stretched this discussion. So should we quickly go to international relation? पता चले सर हम दोनों ही हैं और हम और आप ही डिस्कस कर रहे हैं और स्टूडेंट्स चले गए, ओके, बोले कि यार कितना लंबा खींच रहे हैं। So we'll go straight to IR. Okay. So first question, sir. Virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of the SCU light of above segment. Point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. Sir, I'm very confident of one thing in this question. Ki everyone who has studied from us on this would have done a tremendously beautiful job at writing Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We've stretched it, we've discussed this ad nauseum, and I'm sure everybody is on this part. So, sir, if you would allow me, I'll just add my 2 cents, and then if you wish, then you can add to this part, sir. Atish, sir, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Please, sir.
All right, sir. So, sir, here we have to talk not on SEO. Yes. So, this is a very, very important part, is that we don't have to talk on SEO. This is not a short note on SEO. Straight away go to the question. The question says, virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of SEO. Shanghai Cooperation Organization मालूम है एग्जामिनर को, they are now asking ये virus of conflict. Sir, this is a very beautiful word. Sir, ये पता नहीं लोग मिस तो नहीं करेंगे, मुझे बड़ा दुख होगा अगर लोग मिस करेंगे. They said virus of conflict. मैंने कभी यूपीएससी को ऐसा वर्ड यूज करते हुए नहीं देखा, which is metaphorical if not anything else. Why are they saying virus of conflict? वायरस ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इसलिए होता है बिकॉज वायरस स्प्रेड करता है और वायरस कैन डैमेज फ्रॉम अ वेरी स्मॉल पार्ट, इट कैन स्प्रेड लाइक कोविड हैड स्प्रेड. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है सर. आई वुड लाइक दिस टू बी एम्फेसाइज्ड एंड आई वांट ऑल लर्नर्स टू एक्नॉलेज कि मैं क्या बोल रहा हूं. प्लीज एक्नॉलेज कि तुम लोग समझ पा रहे हो कि यूपीएससी बड़े आराम से इसको क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता था. कि there are many conflicts which are affecting the functioning of SEO, लेकिन वायरस ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट वर्ड यूज करने का मतलब है छोटी बात फैल जाएगी। इंडिया चाइना के बीच में जो बॉर्डर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है वो फैल जाएगा। इंडियाज ऑपोजिशन टू बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव, पाकिस्तान चाइना एक्सेस, ये फैल जाएगा। ये बात कहां से शुरू होगी और कहां चली जाएगी? स्टेपल्ड वीजा का इशू बढ़ जाएगा। देयर आर वेरियस हाई पॉसिबिलिटीज वन एंड टू ऑल्सो, वन टू वन जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा है इंडिया एंड चाइना के बीच में, that may go to any extent, and Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a very promising organization, which we are done to increase our relationship with the neighboring countries, including our reinvigorating relationship between Russia, may go out of control. चाहे वो पाकिस्तान चाइना एक्सेस हो, चाहे रशिया सेंट्रल एशिया का कॉन्सेप्ट हो, we have to make sure that this does not destroy a promising organization or promising chances under SEO. तो इंडिया कैसे कर सकता है? इंडिया इसको ऐसे कर सकता है। There are certain conflicts which are happening between member nations also, like the Tajikistan border dispute. There are certain disputes of, say, trust deficit which are happening between India and China, which can only be neutralized by either India taking bilateral issues and settling of these disputes, also making sure that Pakistan does not become the problem factor where it always does. Like, sir, the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, SARC. SARC was a very promising candidate of regional politics or regional cooperation. What did Pakistan do about it? It spoiled the entire show. And Pakistan is still a contender in SEO. Pakistan is still a nexus with China. Can we settle that dispute? And finally, a very important element. Nothing has worked better than cultural exchanges. Nothing has worked better than soft power. Nothing has worked better than people to people contact. Can we increase that or not? So, new pillars, startups, traditional medicine, digital inclusion, religion, all of that can be brought into that part so that the virus of conflict does not spread. So,
Sir, because we are starting with IR, allow me to make an opening statement which might not go well with a lot of people who teach IR. IR is the most underrated and the most overdone subject when it comes to general studies. People people spend years and years and books on IR, and I must appreciate you deeply, sir. You have also been very, very precise with the way you've done IR. The ground rule has been that if it has been in the news in the last 6 to 8 months, it will be in the IR mains exam. That's it. There's nothing above and beyond this. We hosted Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. It was therefore only a matter of time that had to be asked in mains this year. The way they've asked is, in fact, as you rightly said, very interesting. And the question is very simple. The question is about how does India, while maintaining its own interests, try to solve the inherent problems of the SEO. So I got lucky here also when we were doing Magna Carta this year. I had flagged the SEO as a topic, and in just one consolidated page, the context, the summit, what is India's positioning with the SEO, and what can we do to make it better, we covered for the students, and it converted into a question here itself, sir. So this was good, and this was well enough. There were other questions in the IR part, which I think, like the IMO part, we'll come to in a while, where I think we didn't quite get it right. But this was fairly obvious. But this was a safe question. You've said given all the possible connections around it, covered ho gaya, sir. I think we're good enough for this.
Yes, I just want to re-emphasize the fact that we are, like every organization, India has, so there has been a criticism of India in the past. And that criticism of India in the past is that when it comes to bilateral relations, so this is a very crucial element that I want all the learners to first appreciate, and then in their answer it should reflect. So if we read most of the thought processes, if we read through history, then we will understand one thing, that India has been phenomenally doing very well in bilateral relations. But where it comes at multilateral or multi-membered relationships, there have been question marks raised on this part. And that is one very interesting pivot that we are now changing under the present government. So India now is more comfortable in G20. Let's take a comparison to SARC in 1985. We were having bilateral relationships very well, but SARC did not work. Also, if you notice, now gradually in the initial part with ASEAN also, there were many disputes, but now we are trying to maintain relationship with ASEAN also. We are now in fact G20. Is there a change in our success rate with bilateral or multilateral relationships as compared to bilateral? Every mature country learns this in time. It is a sign of a maturing democracy, a more confident India, that we are able to do this in terms of multilateral relationships. And that is why the emphasis, the point here is virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of SCO. In the light of above statement, point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. So, are we big enough now? Are we mature enough? Do we have that kind of strategic autonomy that we can go and mediate between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan also? Yes, that point has to come out in the answer. Sir.
Absolutely, sir.
So,
Apart from China, India is the only nation which has the impetus and has the standing to really make a difference at the SCO, sir.
coming to the last question, and I think this was वो क्या बोलते हैं ना bonus question. Mentally relax, okay? जो दिल कर रहा है, you can start answering. And I think this is one of the safest question on the planet on this point. So, Indian diaspora has scaled new heights in the West. Describe its economic and political benefits of India. There is not a student worth its salt in UPSC aspirant जो इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर नहीं दे पाएगा. Good, bad, agree, but the question's answer will come. Sir, Atish sir.
सर इस क्वेश्चन में बोले तो बोले क्या करे तो करे क्या मतलब a very simple question in terms of and UPSC has been very straightforward with their diaspora questions. They previously asked diaspora in America and Europe, as you've rightly displayed us, and they've asked a question on diaspora in Southeast Asia. Now, what happened in the last few years is that the sitting vice president of America comes from an Indian origin. The sitting prime minister of the UK comes from an Indian origin of sorts. So there is a degree of placing Indians at the highest pedestal, both in public life and also the pinnacles of corporate life. And the question has been the question has given the structure within itself. What do we politically gain out of it? What do we economically gain out of it? And these are standard format answers. I don't think there is any deepened analysis required here. However, we could conclude by saying that this is a golden opportunity for India to really reach out, tighten their diplomatic pursuits, and really, for the lack of a better word, milk the cow as it is today, because this might not come back again.
Yes. I think, so in a way, to each his own kind of stuff. Everybody can take this question from their own source. Be that in terms of even an economy student who has, or rather a polity student, but who has more inclination of reading economy news, would start talking about, say, Indra Nooyi, or for that matter, the entire situation of our most of the companies, with Google, Alphabet, with Sundar Pichai, or somebody would be speaking, if somebody is really interested in Ajay Banga's promotion to World Bank's president, or if somebody has got political inclination, they'll be talking of Rishi Sunak, and so on and so forth. So I think you have enough number of things, and then of course the present government's structural changes on this part, and I don't think there is any lack of how many things are advantageous, be that in soft power, be that in our cultural significance on that country. There it helps in their decision making. Also the remittances which is coming from that, the foreign exchange, the technology transfers, and the general power of India in the world as a whole is all in all inclusive in all these parts. So I don't think there is anything that I can add or we can add. I think everyone, but only thing is, please remember, stay within the scope of the question and finally answer this question. So question which is again answering the changing strategic autonomy, the expansion and strengthening of NATO, and the stronger US Europe strategic partnership works well for India. So I have taken NATO. I don't know why, but I really gone way beyond the normal requirements of the books, and I've done NATO at a considerable length in my classes. I have understood, or rather, I wanted the students to understand that what are the dangers of India submitting itself to narrow regional or the dimensions with only bilateral nations. India is now on the way to becoming a superpower. How do we engage with multiple units and multiple groups across the world is something that I have discussed. So if you allow me, I'll just go ahead with this.
Sure, sir.
If
Sure.
you- So the point here, a very important point is that so why does one country engage with another country? My question is very simple. So why does one country engage with another country? Why does one country engage with everyone? I request all the learners ki both stamina tumne maintain kiya. You've given us good patient hearing. Just hear me out for the next 2-3 minutes and let me just enlighten you in the lack of a better word. Trying and understand somebody's foreign policy. Please, everyone, give me a thumbs up. Please wake up, everyone. मुझे मालूम है यार सर 2-2.5 घंटे से जगा दिए सर, क्या परेशान करके छोड़ दिया सर आप लोगों ने. So Akash, everyone, please give me hear me out. Romans and countrymen, please hear me out. Okay. So why does one country engage with another country? Why does one country engage with another organization? Now this is a question. This is a question. We need to answer this question. There are certain factors which which is brought under the umbrella of what is called as real politics. So this is what I've been teaching again and again. Pragmatism versus idealism. When you say pragmatism, it has to come from certain belief systems, and a belief system starts from governance system. Democracy is a very important binding factor between countries or groups. Second, do we believe in constitutionalism? Do we believe in human rights? Do we believe in rules of law, and so on and so forth? Does India share that with USA, and does India share that with Europe? 100% without an iota of doubt. Yes. So Europe was based upon this entire concept, the liberty concept, the rule of law, parliamentary democracy, everything. Same goes with USA. So in a way, we have a very common connect. I hope everyone agrees. Give me a thumbs up. Everyone is agreeing on this part. Everyone has understood. So beautiful. So if I, since as a PSIR educator, somehow some parts will start coming from Kenneth Waltz and something will start coming from here and there. So national, and I'm so proud of Navneet. Navneet just touched that. Foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. Absolutely clear on this part. So we have over there. Now the second thing comes. So do we have common economic interests? Yes. Do we have common military interests? Yes. Do we have common threats? Yes. Do we need to counter a common enemy? Whatever that enemy be. And that enemy is not necessarily a country. Please don't bring it on that issue. It is not to do with, don't take every discussion to China. You will make a big mistake in the exam. There are enemies. When I say enemy, there are adverse situations. Do we need maritime security? Yes. Do we need free trade programs, free trade channels? Yes. Do you need climate change as a common enemy for everyone? Yes. There is an issue of so on and so forth. And then the changing pivots. The entire foreign policy is changing towards specific Indo-Pacific region. USA still wants to maintain its world power status. They want to bring it over here. So now what is happening? You scratch my back, I scratch yours. All right. And that is what is nothing else but real politics. So balancing China, Europe stability, technology being demanded, climate change, India pivoting from bilateral relationship to multilateral, all of that should be brought into picture. And then came the wake up alarm. I don't know whether it's written here or not. No, the wake up alarm was COVID. COVID suddenly brought the picture of supply lines stability. Mr. Modi has been continuously speaking about supply line stability ever since COVID and after that, the Ukraine war. The only way we can do it is that the recently announced trade channel. Why is it so important? Are there not alternative sources of trade channels left? There are. But you just don't know. You just don't know where something will go wrong. There'll be a war or something. It's better to have more rather than less. So yes, India would like to do that. India would like to expand its trade in Central Asia and Europe. We need technology. We are a developing. We have a huge amount of technical pool of graduates and postgraduates. They need employment. We have a high diaspora and all that stuff. But is it difficult? 100% difficult. Why? Because NATO is a sworn adversary to Russia, and Russia is amongst the most loyal friend to us. Will we be able to take that pivot? And as Dr. Jaishankar said, that we will not be catered, we will not be stopped by idealism. We will take our strategic autonomy. So, this word, if you can look at the lower part of the screen, Indian strategic autonomy, Rananitik Swayata, is the one which is going to be absolutely most crucial word. This question, sir, was more about India's strategic autonomy than probably about NATO. Sir.
Sir, this question had a hidden secret. There were two parts. The first was the expansion of NATO, and the second part was the strengthening of US Europe ties. Now, they are correlated also and they're independent also. And a student who would address both of these parts would get that additional half a mark, 1 mark extra. That's number one. And number two, sir, this is a line cut, copy, pasted from an Indian Express editorial written by C. Rajmohan. The
Yes.
vicious circle, the virus wala question was a line
Yes.
taken by an editorial written by Harsh Pant, which was also
Yes.
published in the ORF a while ago.
Yes.
But let's
Yes.
come to the question, sir, that we must look at, and I bow down in defeat before the honorable UPSC, because if you remember a few years ago, there was a question on the McBride Commission of the
Yes.
UNESCO, which had absolutely no reason of being in the mains paper, but was still there. And we
Hmm.
fought for reasons to be there. I think the last question that we're discussing today, sir, is I think on that, and I we could go to that, sir.
Yes, sir. And the last question, sir, I don't know why. Oh my God, why is this? C is an important component of the cosmos. My understanding was okay. So either ways, first let me read the question and let people form their own opinion. Discuss in the light of the above statement the role of the IMO, International Maritime Organization, in protecting environment and enhancing maritime safety. Sir, if I'm not wrong, this question is for 250 words. Okay, sir.
Yes,
This
sir.
is
250 words on this. Yes, sir.
I mean, for heaven's sake, I don't know what to write in 250 words for international. This is, I'll take some of these word limit and put it to some other question. You know, some equitable distribution of word limit. I mean, what am I supposed to write until unless I just want to spend some time? So, you know, I don't know what to write. And people would call this an easy answer or rather an easy question. I don't know what to write. After 150 words, I'll be searching for some fillers instead of our writing. So would you like to take a call?
Sir, let us approach this as a question if it had come to us when we were writing the mains exam.
Sir.
Let's not think of this question because we now have the data before us, and now we have the information.
Hmm.
If I was the person here writing the mains exam with this question in front of me,
Hmm.
sir, honest to God, I would write whatever the hell I know, starting from UNCLOS to IMO to anti-piracy,
And the
to
submarine blasts and all that stuff.
to maritime environmental safety, to maritime environmental protection. I would go to the extent of even writing about the Paris Climate Action Change Treaty. I would go to Kyoto. Whatever I would know about environmental jurisprudence, I would just place it there and submit myself to
So
mercy
we
of the
lost your voice.
examiner कि भाई 20 में से 4 नंबर ही दे दे, 3 नंबर ही दे दो, बस दे दो.
दे दो, कुछ दे दो.
बस
But
बस बस बाकी तो
absolutely.
ठीक है. I mean, now
So
there is enough
is
material.
question में you cannot. Yes, sir. Is question. Sorry. So we can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Sir.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
So, sir,
Please.
questions like these. So, the thing is, people would often say you can't predict everything. We can't predict everything in the UPSC because it's like the UPSC is at the top of the Tiger Hill and we are walking up. So they have a vantage point. They are the ones setting the paper. We are not. We'll come as close as we can. Right, I got 11 questions right this year. I probably got 17 last year. वो ऊपर नीचे होगा sir. You got like so many questions right this year. तो अब McBride commission पूछ सकते हैं तो sir ये तो clear है ना. UPSC wants and every paper sir will have one of these questions which is very odd. In GS paper,
Very
they tell you that in GS paper 1, sir, they've asked a question, and now I mean we're just finishing up our discussion today. The Delhi Sultanate the technological advancements in Delhi Sultanate. मतलब अब ये तो हर पेपर में
I
एक
like that answer, sir. Only I can write this answer. He does not know anything about it. So this is it. So I think take it with a pinch of salt, my dear friends, all of you. Take it with a pinch of salt. If you've written 19 questions out of whatever the number of questions, and you've done reasonably well in 15, 16, God be with you. You are cracking this exam. Right. And don't try to predict the entire thing. That is not your job and that is not possible. Like I, for one, International Maritime Organization, I read so much. I'm genuinely interested in international relations. I don't know how much to write. After 150 words, I will start writing some fillers, which I don't want to. It's okay. It's fine. It's absolutely acceptable. This is UPSC. Welcome to the real world. And I think, sir, we had a very comprehensive discussion. It went on for 2.5 hours, sir. Time flies, but it was a pleasure discussing, and I hope all our learners enjoyed. Before we sign off, एक बड़ी major announcement: Unacademy Ultra Combat 24 September 2023 को 11 बजे. Please join this. जो भी join करने का link है, सब कुछ description में है. You stand to win laptops and prelims, test series, and Fitbit watch, 100 hours library access, and free prepaid recharge on your mobile, and 1000 lucky aspirants get Amazon gift vouchers. It was a pleasure discussing this with you in whatever limited capacity of subject that we know. We have discussed this. I hope you have enjoyed this. Atish, sir, anything that you want to add, sir?
Thank you, sir. We must do this more often. As my senior, not only in the teaching profession but also in the legal profession, it is always an honor to share some space with you. It's always very encouraging, sir. I hope I have a little bit of motivation as much as you do with the way you are so enthusiastic about explaining things with such detail and gravity. Learn so much from you, sir. And it has been an absolute honor and a privilege. And I think this exam has been a very clear lesson for the students. Stick to your basics, read one book, read the newspaper, follow one teacher and like follow one source, follow one thing, and you're good. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's a standard format paper. There's no need to create panic. I think that's been the key messaging, sir. But thank you so much for your time, sir. It has been
Thank you very much, sir. And let's crack it, sir.
Let's crack it indeed, sir. On a Sunday evening, let us must crack it.
Let's crack it, sir. Right, sir. Thank you, sir.